Welcome everyone, it's SimTV here with the Washington Region SCCA at Sebring for a 90-minute endurance race with GT4 and TCR. My name is Finity Kuna here with Tom O'Gorman. Tom, really looking forward to doing a stream with you, and especially a nice endurance race here set up with some really fun cars to drive. I was watching a little bit of the sprint races these guys had earlier in the season, some great action. Now they gotta pace themselves though.
League, which means that you get to join us on a very different race than we've seen for 4 weeks straight so far. And we're jumping straight into this one with TCR cars hitting the track for qualifying. And as you mentioned, it's a 90-minute endurance race tonight instead of our typical 40-minute sprints, which means there is a lot of different variables that are not normally in play tonight.
Absolutely. We got qualifying out on the track at the moment. I believe we have I want to say it's the TCR class that is out on the moment. Indeed they are. They're actually heading out the backstretch.
And TCR this season has produced some of the tightest racing and also some of the tightest qualifying results. It was actually John Chrissy that was quickest in practice by a pretty good margin of a whole 0.06 of a second. There in the 14 car over Peter Lausen, and then Murphy Nichols, taking a look at that 5 car that was just on your screen, was third quickest. Interestingly enough, though, Elias Roman was fourth fast in qualifying. He's been kind of the class of the field so far, along with Rob Kucera, who we actually do not see in the server. So we're going to have a couple of different players in the hunt tonight in TCR, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking on board with Elias Roman, heading through the first sector of the track. You know, Tom, I would say you have a decent amount of experience here at Sebring. What are some of the trickiest corners that you feel are at this track?
Well, before we get to the specific corners, Sebring really it keeps you on your toes because it has partial concrete and partial asphalt. So right now we're looking at the asphalt, and then right there, that surface change, the coloration, when it changes, that's now the concrete, and the concrete gives you a lot more grip than the asphalt does. And then you transition back onto the asphalt in certain places. So there are critical corners that you have to kind of plan for transitioning on and off of that concrete that changes the grip level that the car has available. Obviously, that is the case in all the different cars. But specifically in the TCRs, being front-wheel drive touring cars, making about 330 horsepower to the wheels. Obviously, yeah, if you're joining us for the first time, you're thinking Audi front-wheel drive, but yes, it's a front-wheel drive Audi touring car. This is one of those critical corners where you kind of turn in on the asphalt, you get the concrete through the apex, and then you have to plan to transition back onto the asphalt, so you almost adjust your lines just a little bit. Any of those corners that have that feature to it, especially in the lower speed when the front wheels have to do all the work, that just makes it a little bit more challenging than in other situations and other tracks.
Absolutely, and here you see Elias Roman now working on as they head to the back stretch here. Final last straightaway until they head to Sunset Bend, which is probably, I would argue, one of the trickiest corners on this track. Maybe these cars, you know, you can argue a bit are slow enough where it's not as treacherous, but it's a blind corner. You can take many different lines at entry, many different lines at exit. All I know is that no matter what line you take, you always feel like you could have gone a little bit faster through there.
Yeah, and we'll see just how bumpy it gets as we're still right along board with Elias Roman. He's got a nice draft off of the back of Peter Lausen in the orange and black car just in front. These TCR cars take a little bit of time to get up to speed, so I don't think we'll see pole times come through this time. But that said, they all just bested their, actually not all of them, but Elias Roman bests his practice time and goes to the provisional pole. Times continue to stream through, but no doubt the draft off of the back of Lausen's car is helping with that.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask. You know, there are a decent amount of straightaways around Sebring, especially, you know, with these cars. Is the draft really worth anything for these guys?
Yeah, you can certainly plan. Actually, this is a perfect depiction right here. Elias Roman has about that 3 or 4 car length gap. That's the perfect place to be because you get a little sniff of the draft, but you're not really being impeded, especially if the driver in front is a little slower than you. So this is an absolutely great place to be. And he's got a great buddy there as well with Peter Lausen, who we now ride on board with, only qualifying 0.6 slower than Roman did. So no slouch either. And I can guarantee you a lot of that 0.6 is down to the draft. So these guys are kind of in picture perfect flying order right now.
Yeah, and again, our top two in the standings, Roman currently sitting on pole, but we still got over 20 minutes left in qualifying. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be shared by both classes. I think in about, I want to say, in about 6 or 7 minutes, we're going to have the GT4 guys head out on track with the Porsche and BMW.
And this is one of the longer tracks we've seen on the schedule so far. It's a little bit shorter than Circuit of the Americas, where we kicked off the season, but you're absolutely right. We split about 12 minutes for TCR, 12 minutes for GT4 qualifying, with a split, with a changeover in the middle. So in maybe about 5 minutes, we'll start to see the GT4 cars line up on the pit lane, and that's always a mad dash in itself. But fewer looks at the track this week than these drivers have been used to. Since the more recent tracks we've seen, like Donington Park, even Imola was a little bit shorter. Now we're moving back to one of these longer tracks.
Yeah, and taking a look back at Roman and Peter in the 56 car. How do you say the last name again? Just wanted to make sure I'm saying it right, because
I believe it's Lausen.
Lausen, okay. That sounds about right. I'm going to take your word for it, but I definitely wanted to know his name because he's looking pretty fast here, though Roman caught up to him quite a bit over the course of that last lap. For Roman, he did go faster. It was a 2:14.7 for Roman. It went even faster than Lausen by 0.8 of a second, the gap between first and second.
Yeah, that's one of the largest gaps we've seen on poles, but it is still the same players. Elias Roman continuing to circulate, and I think we're probably right on the point of diminishing returns with tires on the qualifying pace anyway. There's a look at John Chrissy, who sits in the 4th position right now, just a 10th back from Will Robbins, who is 3rd. But Chrissy's always been in the hunt as well. I think he was on pole, if memory serves, either at Donington or at Imola. I can't remember exactly, but he's been in the hunt. And something that we haven't really talked about, I guess, is that this race coming into it is a 90-minute endurance race versus the 40-minute sprints that we typically see. I think qualifying is less consequential tonight. It's going to be more consistency once we get into the race itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can with the sprint races, obviously make a mistake. You got another race to fall back on to get your night going the right direction. If you make a mistake in this race, you're gonna have to suffer for however many minutes you have left in the race. That's gonna be it, and it is gonna be a lot about pacing yourself, especially because Sebring, we talked about, especially we saw in Sunset Bend that last time. You could see all throughout the track these cars bumping over the bumps here, and these guys are gonna be pushing these cars as hard as they can. So it's gonna be really interesting to see these guys try to carry the speed and pace themselves over the course of 90 minutes. You can't just go all out, because obviously you burn the tires up and you might end up making mistakes, especially with the grass so close to the track's edge.
So watching Chris Harp, and then the Grid Life themed car just behind is Will Robbins, who sits 4th overall. He just got bumped by David Alessi, who was the pole sitter at Mazda Raceway or WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And that number 34 car is always quick, but it's still 0.8 of a second between Elias Roman and Peter Lausen. Then another 0.4 back to David Alessi. There he is in his classic orange. Shoot, I'm blanking on the name. I wanted to say Lewis Hamilton. Who's the driver?
Fernando Alonso.
Alonso, thank you.
Yeah, beautiful paint scheme for Alessi, and also too with I think it was it Chrissy? No, Chrissy didn't have that paint scheme. What was it? Someone had the Super GT paint scheme on. I was trying to remember who that was.
Chris Harp with the Calsonic livery.
There you go. Yep, that's what I was like. Oh wow, Calsonic. Nice to see. Did you see that on Audi instead of a GTR? But close enough.
And Chris Harp, as we say that, jumps up to 5th, bumping John Chrissy out of the top 5 in qualifying order. So it's looking like Elias Roman might be a little bit in a league of his own with Rob Kucera being gone this week. Lausen and Alessi are both in the 15s, and then it's a slew of them in the 16s. So we're still going to have a race here. And with this race being a 90-minute race, I think the TCR cars will get more interruptions from GT4 than they're used to seeing. They're usually overlapping each other once, maybe twice at a shorter track like Donington. But this race, they just got a lot of time to cover, and I think that's going to make, even when you spread out, you're going to always have either TCR or GT4 traffic to deal with. Yeah,
that's another thing too. Talk to me about the mix between the GT4 cars and TCR at a track like Sebring. It's a fairly tight circuit in some parts. There are some straightaways where you can get some passing done, but these cars are so similar on speed. It's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, here at Sebring, I think there's a lot of the corners that are not necessarily very conducive to the front-wheel drive platform. This whole section that we're looking at right now, even coming down towards turn 10 and then trying to get the car powered up through turns 11, 12, and then slowed back down into this kind of awkward entry turn 13. The front-wheel drive platform doesn't necessarily like all of that, just the natural shape that this track has. And with it being so flat, there's not really any sort of camber or anything to help the car, where other tracks with elevation change might have that. So actually here at Sebring, the spread is going to be much wider than we've been used to seeing, I think. I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 seconds between the fastest TCR car and the slowest or slower GT4 cars even. And then you get onto these really long straightaways, and that it just exacerbates the problem even more. So I think overlap will not necessarily be as big of a deal as it is just kind of saturation in the amount of time that it takes to get around here. But you can guarantee the TCR cars, no matter what, are just as good as the GT4s on the brakes, and that's why it makes the passing so challenging.
And you see Chris Harp almost hitting the wall there, keeping a nice tight line through Sunset Bend off the exit. He'll come. We'll see if this time's going to be faster. I don't think these guys have too much time left for their qualifying attempts. And it looks like Chris Harp across the line for him does not go faster. It was a keep saying in 1 minute time. His lap times are pretty long here. 2:16.6 for Chris Harp last time through is not going to be enough to go faster.
Yeah, and that would have been the final flying lap that they'll be able to complete. You see Murphy Nichols slams it into the wall to call it a day in qualifying. Chris Harp getting every bit of practice he can in the first half of this lap. This is another one of those corners. Look at the concrete through the middle of the corner, and then right there, really early off of the apex, the concrete goes away, and that's going to spin the front tires up on these TCR cars. So I think with tonight's 90-minute race, we are right on the bubble with requiring a pit stop. And that's going to be a point of conversation for the entire night. But these drivers in TCR, they're absolutely in a position where front tire management is way more critical than raw pace, I think.
Yeah, and as you're saying too, if you don't make that pit stop, you're going to have to carry these tires all the distance. And here we have now the GT4 cars heading out onto track. And I see a good amount of BMWs in the mix. I remember when the end of Rodenso, I think there were only 1 or 2 really that decided to go with that car. But I see a pretty even split between the cars from what I can see.
Yeah, and this has absolutely been the track where the conversation has been the most interesting with what cars might be better, especially because you have multiple variables. Sebring has a lot of different corners and a lot of different kinds of corners, but you also have that longer race. And we've seen in the sprint races, it's pretty obvious whether the BMW or the Porsche is faster just based on how it takes to the track. So this week we have a track that doesn't seem to favor a specific car and a format that favors different cars at different phases of the race, if you want to call it that. So I think that'll be fun to explore and see how that pans out. But GT4 cars headed out for their qualifying session. They'll probably get 3 flyers, 4 flyers at best, and they're going to need all 3 or 4 of them because it takes that long to get the tires up to temperature. So this is a really critical time to get your spot and then get the tires up to temperature and be able to deliver a fast lap, probably close to 7 minutes from now.
And DJ Allison Jr. already trying to make some passes occur in qualifying, getting past the number 12 machine that Andrew Kessley is working his way on by. And expect to see DJ up near the top of the standings. I imagine he's been doing pretty good in this series.
Yeah, he's got a couple of race wins, had a couple of interesting run-ins with different drivers across the board, and actually had a kind of a heartbreaker at Donington Park, but he does sit atop the championship points by 39 over Andrew Pilata, who's been a really consistent force this entire season. Ken Halsteal is 3rd. And then Speaking of Ken, Ken was swerving down the back straightaway, and DJ almost rammed into him. Oh, and actually in behind, I think there's some contact. Oh, these guys wrecking out of Sunset Bend. Halsteal actually pulling off to start his lap. A traffic jam out of the final corner as these guys start their flying laps. Well, that's bad news for Halsteal, because I just mentioned a minute ago that you need a long time to get the tires up to temperature, and now Halsteal is an entire warm-up lap behind. So that's actually really bad news. He's going to be frustrated by that. We're riding along board with Andrew Kessel, looking back at the team, both running those Turner liveries. I think one of those is probably Jonathan White. He was running one of those liveries. And I'm trying to find the other number.
Yeah, I'm trying to see as well. Let's see. Let's see White. Where I'm trying to look where Jonathan White. There we go. 22 for him, and the car I think is the 12 right ahead of him.
It's the 18 of Tom Layton.
Ah, there we go. So we got White and Layton, teammates in a BMW. Again, a lot of cars in a very short amount of time. Can't imagine some guys in behind this are going to be too happy with all the traffic.
Well, yeah, and this part of the session doesn't really matter other than just not getting too spun up about what's going on, because this lap is not going to be the fastest lap for any of these drivers unless they make a mistake or have traffic issues on the other laps later than this one. So I think it kind of looks like these two are going to try to work together, stay in kind of flying formation, getting a good rundown into turn 13 now. And just talking to some of the drivers, it sounded like the BMW was stronger in a majority of these kind of mid to low speed corners, but the Porsche is really strong on the long run and really strong off of turn 7, that really critical hairpin that we'll take a look at some point tonight. So there's way more conversation about which car is better. And I think that's why I'm on the edge of my seat for tonight is who picks what strategy based on their car, and then who can execute it the best.
Whoa! As you see the 22 of White get some grass, he's actually surprisingly going to pull off. That's interesting. I'm surprised he wouldn't just continue on. He didn't hit anything, just got a little bit loose, maybe burned a little bit of stuff out of the tire, but White going to turn back to the pits. That's going to be interesting to see if that's going to hurt him, because as you mentioned, just getting these tires warmed up to temperature takes a little bit of time, and he's going to lose out on that.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. I don't know that I totally understand or follow that one, but that is on him. He still has yet to actually leave the pit lane. He's still sitting in his pit box, so maybe doing something. Perhaps maybe forgot to take fuel out of the car or load his qualifying setup. That's the best I can guess at this point. But at the top, DJ Alessandrini, quickest on the first flying lap, goes to pole by almost a full second over Tom Layton. Chris Lapras is third. Danny Gross is fourth, Ido Waxman fifth. Ido is in a BMW, Danny's in a Porsche. Lapras and Layton both in BMWs. So we have Porsche, 2 BMWs, another Porsche, and then a BMW in the top 5. Good mix.
Yeah, really solid mix. Curious to see if Layton can try to find anything. A whole second separating himself and Alessandrini. Qualifying sessions just now started with these guys putting their first flying lap, since we could expect to see this gap close, maybe even switch back and forth. I have to see if Layton can find any time. Lapper is also close in behind. This is a beautiful paint scheme. This is nostalgic for me. I love it was a game called Sports Car GT, and one of my favorite cars to drive was a BMW. I forgot what model it was, but it was early 2000s, had this paint scheme on, and I absolutely love this thing.
That's crazy you say that. I got my sim racing start in Sports Car GT. I didn't even know it was a simulator, but I love that game. Yeah, you're right. It was an E36 BMW with this livery. There we go. And I love that car, and it's super cool. I love that you can just do whatever you want with these liveries in iRacing now. And actually, if you take a peek just ahead, that is Ken Hausil right in front of him on his first flying lap. The rest of the field on their second flyers, so keep an eye out on that 23 car. He's kind of a cycle behind, but absolutely a contender. There he is.
Yeah, and I do imagine we can see him somewhere near the top. Now, I can't imagine one lap is going to hurt him that much, but Ken has quite a bit of pace, but we'll have to see here. Again, I imagine also Ken's too has been near the top of the qualifying. It's typically a battle between him and Alessandrini most weeks from the many races we stream between him and DJ taking the top few spots of the podium. But we'll see if Hausil can recover from losing a lap here in qualifying compared to everyone else. As we got now that everyone coming through for their second laps of qualifying. We'll start with DJ Alessandrini across the line for him. He goes about 0.2 faster, to 2:10.4. Ido Waxman goes up into second place, and Layton immediately takes it back. Now the gap 0.7 of a second between himself and Alessandrini, so it's starting to drop a little bit.
Oh, first flyer for Ken Hausil. Check that out, a 2:11.0. So he jumps all the way up to second, and he's, remember, a cycle behind, and almost ties him. Does Chris Lapras right behind. So Lapras, with the benefit of the draft off the back of 23, gets up to third. Then another contender that we've seen a lot of this season, Alex LaRose in the Porsche Cayman. He's just a couple of car lengths back. There's the 26. He goes up to fourth. So the shuffle now makes Alessandrini on pole by 0.6. Hausil, Lapras, LaRose, and Layton. It's a lot of L's in there. Evan Schickel doing a great job in sixth. Ken Scott is seventh. Ido drops to eighth. Another shout out, Danny Gross is ninth, and Francois Brou in the top 10. Also running a Cayman tonight.
Yeah, I remember racing with Francois quite a bit in the Redenza Sports Car Challenge. Oh, he's got a very nice paint scheme on his car. Very respectful driver, and decently in the midfield. We'll see if Francois can go even faster. Ooh, gets very loose, or almost sends the car flying around. And that's the thing too. How has the car stability changed, Joe, with these guys? Because I've been away from this car for quite a while, and I remember some guys preferring. I remember specifically a lot of people prefer the Porsche because actually the update made it more stable than the BMW when the BMW first came out. So has that changed at all?
Well, Honestly, I've been away as long as you have. I kind of stepped away from driving in iRacing for a lot of traveling over the summer and stuff. So I haven't had firsthand experience, but in the secondhand kind of conversation that I hear about these cars, not a ton has changed other than some fine tuning between the balance of the two cars, making the BMW much more competitive with the cars around it. And what's that? Nope. Okay, I thought it was Paul Darling for a second, but I would have been surprised it's not. Sorry. Back to the thought is still that they're a little bit odd to drive. There's definitely a feel to these GT4 cars that is challenging and kind of unique in the iRacing service, and I think that is why you almost practice the car that you get good at, and then you kind of stick with that one. And then there's certain drivers that have either enough experience or have forced enough practice into it that they can jump between the two. But often what we've seen is drivers sticking to their guns on whatever platform they like. Once they get good at it, they kind of stay there.
You see Slice Effort ripping past Sabu. Looks like I'm not sure if he's going to pull in or just letting some traffic go on by so he can set up for another flying lap. Up near the top, though, the gap getting significantly closer in the timesheets. Alex Rose only 2, or just about 0.3 of a second back from Alessandrini. So it's 2 Porsches up near the top, then it's BMW, and then I think another BMW, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So, Porsche looking to be the car to beat at the moment, with 2 Porsches in the top 2, then 3rd, 4th, 5th, all BMWs trying to chase them on down. Still some time left, and also, how about this, between Lapras and Hausil, almost tied 6,000ths of a second separating those two. That's amazing considering these guys are doing 2-minute laps.
Yeah, that's inches at this point. Now, driver I'm keeping my eye on is Jonathan White. He's been a contender for podiums and top 5s this season so far with the WDCR Virtual Racing League. There's a look at him in the 22. Remember, we saw him kind of he had a little bit of a moment, had no problems really, and then all of a sudden parked it and went back to pit lane. He has yet to turn a clean lap.
I think I was going to say he did turn a lap. You can see there 211.8. However, it was not registered, as you imagine, might have gotten off somewhere on the lap, so it didn't count. Otherwise, that lap would have put him decently, I think, 11th or 10th. So he's got to get a clean lap in at some point. So he's got this lap and then another lap potentially if he can't get it done this time through. So he's got 2 more attempts to put in a solid lap time. So we'll see where this 22 car is going to end up. I can't imagine he's going to want to start from the back of the GT4 field. It's a pretty long climb up that. So we've got, what is that, 26 cars, I want to say, in the GT4 class. So that's a long ways to go from the back.
It is, but it's also not the end of the world tonight more than others because of that 90-minute race. I think you can kind of work with starting at the back here versus other nights in a 40-minute sprint. You're basically just trying to look like a hero, picking up as many positions as you can, but I think you're out of contention usually. But he's definitely down to crunch time there in the 22.
Yeah, looking at Evan Schickel in the 33 BMW machine, currently 6th on the board, so he's kind of creeped up in the later stages of qualifying here. And I think this is the driver you're thinking of with Paul Darling. I was wondering who was running that paint scheme. I was looking for Sam Scott because I know he would also run either very similar or the same exact paint scheme as Paul Darling. He's currently sitting in 7th in the Porsche, almost said 911. It's not a 911. Came in, what is it, 718? If I'm not mistaken, that's the model number. Can't quite remember the top of my head.
That is correct.
So Sam Scott currently sitting 7th on the board. I haven't seen the gaps drop between our top 2 in qualifying. If anything, it's actually expanded. Alessandrini just put in her time and pulled off the track. So separating the gap a little bit by only a few hundredths of a second to Alex LaRose, who's still out there trying to beat the 61 of Alessandrini.
But we were talking about in the 22, Jonathan White jumps up to 3rd, the 210.9. So he is the 3rd car to drop below that 211 mark. And actually, they were actually, I think, closer to the 209s in some practice sessions. So I'm curious what the weather might look like or what might be keeping these drivers being a little further off pace.
Well, I mean, it's pretty cool on the track. It's pretty grippy. I think as cool as you're gonna get it. Air temp 75, track temp 76. I mean, it looks pretty ideal to me, looking at the weather. So yeah, not too sure why these guys are, not necessarily going faster as you're saying in the 209s, but qualifying, completing here, drivers able to finish the lap they have started. And really, if anything, waiting on Alex LaRose. If he's able to find 0.3 of a second, Alessandrini's pulled off the track, so he's happy with that. Ooh, LaRose definitely not going to be able to pull it off. Had a bit of a tank slapper out of the penultimate corner. So it looks like, if anything, he might have to settle for second place. Take a look at Jonathan White, because he surprisingly went up into third. He still has another lap, and he's still out on track. Curious to see if he could maybe put himself, if not in first, up in second place.
Yeah, there's a number of cars still circulating. Thomas Layton's just coming through. He might have a chance to improve. I think Ken Hausil is still... where is that on the track? He is about halfway around the lap. There he is. And Jonathan White obviously coming closer towards the start-finish line now. So we could see a little bit of jumbling, but 0.3 of a second provisional pole to DJ Alessandrini over Alex LaRose. And then that big slew of BMWs. And I got to say, I'm a little surprised that the Cayman is looking like the faster car on raw speed. Obviously, we're within the noise of these drivers just having a qualifying performance that is what it is. And I think this is probably the best balance that we've seen between the two cars in any track in this season.
And White, whoa, coming sliding out of the final corner. Whoa, almost hits the pit road attenuator, so he's not even going to cross the line, so that's going to be it for his attempt. Ken Hausil still flying on the back stretch now, approaching Sunset. Ben will ride on board with him. Take a look how it is in the GT4 car, so the TCR car be pretty bumpy. Imagine a similar story for the GT4s, especially in the middle of the corner. Whoa, and even Ken a bit sideways, fighting the car, fighting the oversteer out of the final corner. He will come across the line for Hausil. Is it faster? 2:11 flat, more or less. It's actually 0.02 of a second off of his fastest time, so he does not improve. So he'll settle for fourth place, and I think more or less that's going to end qualifying here. I think I see Christopher Lapper's out on track. I think he actually finished a lap. So I think that's going to wrap up qualifying, essentially.
Yeah, he's deep enough in this lap. He might have barely started this one, but he is, sitting fifth right now on the overall grid. This will be close to even whether or not he gets back to the start-finish line in time, as he's got about 45 seconds to get there, and that's a long way to go from turn 10 all the way back to turn 17 and onto the front straightaway.
Let's see here. He's got... no, I don't think he's going to have enough time. He's going to be short by about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So Lapper's is going to try to make it back around. If anything, I don't think he's going to be too disappointing in starting up in fifth. We're talking about qualifying. Not necessarily matter. If you start around midfield, you still got a really solid shot of winning the race, especially if a lot of the drivers up ahead of you make a mistake. But with that, I think we'll take this time to take a look at the track map of Sebring. We've seen out on the track, seeing these guys live in action, putting around here. Let's take a little bit of an aerial view of the circuit that is Sebring International. So heading down the front straightaway into turn number 1 is going to be a little bit tricky for some of these guys. Again, I imagine with a 90-minute race, they're going to be taking it a bit easier than some of the sprint races we've seen, where absolute chaos unfolds. Then you head down to turns 2 and 3, another short left-hander, and then a bit of an S section, and then snaking out of turn 5 through turn 6 into the hairpin that is turn 7.
Yeah, that hairpin is the best passing opportunity on this track. It's going to create some exciting stuff. And then you get a little bit of a wiggle coming out of turn 7, and it's basically a flat-out run with a couple of kinks in it down to turn 10. That's at the very bottom of your screen there. And then kind of a really technical handling section from turn 10 where you take a 90-degree right, got to open your hands up and get the car tracking out to the left. Then back to the left for turn 13, almost a mirror image of turn 10. Then you get a little bit of a breather through 14 into 15, and then 15 and 16 are really, really critical. Faster than you think, but really tricky to get right. There's a lot of space there to make a mistake. Not very high consequence, but really critical for speed. Then the final run down to turn 17 into Sunset. Lots of options on entry and exit there. Sometimes it comes down to the start-finish line at the flag at these races here at Sebring.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to complete a lap of Sebring. A very fun, very, very challenging endurance circuit. Again, how bumpy it is. I cannot remember the last time they ever repaved this place. They've repaved sections, but I don't think they've ever really repaved this track as a whole. And that's what gives it so much character, and again, makes this track so difficult to drive here. As we get ready for the pace lap here, I think we got a pace car indeed rolling off. So we'll go through your starting lineup. So, starting on pole, DJ Alessandrini, real suppliers there in the 61 car, very fast. Alex Rose in second in the 26. Back in third, Jonathan White with a really solid qualifying effort late in the going in the 22 car. Ken Hausil next to him in the 23 in fourth.
Continuing the BMW trend, it's Christopher Lapras in fifth alongside Thomas Layton in the 6 car, and then final BMW, Ido Waxman in seventh, and Evan Schickel to complete multiple rows of BMWs written in a straight line.
Back in 9th, you find Kevin Zhu in the 243. Sam Scott sitting in 10th. And back in row 6, we find Daniel Gross in the 24 car. Andrew Kessel in the 12 in 12th place.
Then it's the Cayman to Francois Brew in the 69, starting 13th, and Jeff Miner completes the 7th row, starting in 14th in the 37. Griffin Spicer alongside Greg Obadiah. Spicer in the number 9 BMW, Obadiah in the 66.
Sly Stafford going to be sitting in the 719, and then Alex Kurashek in the 32 car in 18th, and rounding out your top 20, Dave Fitzgerald in the 91 in 19th, and Chris Speller in the 908 in 20th.
Going to have Scott Merker, Andrew Chow, Charles Bowley, Don Manning, David Thompson, and Charlie Abel rounding out the GT4 field. Before we get to the front of TCR, that's going to be Elias Roman on the pole over John Chrissy, who jumped up to second in the final moments of qualifying. Peter Lausen in third, and David Alessi will start fourth there in TCR.
Yeah, and you can see the TCR field here leaving a bit of a gap. David Alessi starting in 27. Don Manning also in 28th. I'm not sure if this is actually how they're lined up. I hope not. It'll be a bit chaotic that way. Will Robbins back in 29th in the 35. I didn't see, I think it was Chris Harp next to him. Darren Heath in 31st, and Murphy Nichols in the 5 in 32nd.
Yeah, and then we have a Louis Alessi rounding out the final couple of rows in TCR. Louis Alessi will start alongside Brian McRae. And then John Willeman was the final car in TCR to turn a qualifying time. Benson Tai and David Cook both not completing laps in qualifying. Not sure if they're on the grid, but that is the overall order for round 5 of the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Then you can see your final starters. So we got just about 30. No, we got 39 guys registered. I think I could see 36 of them out on the track. And we'll go back up to the GT4 field here, working through the final set of corners. Onto the back straightaway they will go for the final time before we head them out for 90 minutes. Again, my name is Finny Kuna here with Tom O'Gorman. Not your usual commentating lineup. Nice to be back in the booth a few times just to get a glimpse of what I used to do in week in, week out for nearly 2.5 years. It's kind of amazing to think I was doing it for so long, but really looking forward to getting this race underway. Curious to see who's going to end up on top 90 minutes from now, but we'll find out in just about a minute's time. Well, at least we'll get to the start of finding out in a minute's time here, working down the back straightaway. And I can't imagine what's going through these guys' mind. What's going to be their plan for these first few corners?
Well, I think it's really critical for any of those BMWs that start third on back to get towards the front, at the front, and start to control the pace, because the Caymans are better on the long run. So the BMWs really need to get towards the front, and they have the power to do it. So that is absolutely what's on my mind if I'm Jonathan White or Ken House-Steele, or even back to Chris Lapras or Leighton. Look for those BMWs to charge hard early.
Indeed we do, and they're already starting to charge earlier. There you see them pulling out almost 4 wide as they cross the start-finish line. We are green here at Sebring.
Look at Jonathan White. He already poking to the inside of DJ Alessandrini, but he's actually protecting from a really hard charging. Is that Evan Schickel maybe? And it's going to be a crash. Already Alex LaRose gets turned by Jonathan White, and it's chaos on turn 1.
Chaos is not describing. The entire track's pretty much blocked. And we have the TCR field that's just about going to be working through here in just a few moments' times. As you see, DJ Alessandrini sped away, and here is the TCR field. They're starting now looking a lot more orderly than the GT4 field heading down into turn 1.
Yeah, and it's John Chrissy looking a little racy. There's David Alessi streaming through, but GT4 car still rejoining, is going to interrupt the TCR battle. Chris Harp is side by side, barely squeezes through. Oh, they're 3 wide down into turn 3 to start this. Don't forget, this is a 90-minute endurance race.
Oh, and the leader's sideways there. Oh, it's a contact. Elias Roman in the lead. He's going to get turned around in front of the field. Guys, 90 minutes are on the clock, and they're 3 wide heading for the hairpin. Wow, this is a much more chaotic start than I was expecting.
Yeah, this is not at all what I was expecting. But Peter Lausen goes to the front, David Alessi in second, and then I think Chrissy maintains third. Elias Roman made a mistake in turn 3 and went off, rejoined at turn 5, got turned by Chrissy. Kind of no fault of either of theirs other than the initial mistake by Roman. But the TCR field still much more orderly. Back in GT4, the hard charger that I couldn't quite tell who it was, it's Ido Waxman, up from I think 7th on the grid to 3rd overall. There he is, sweeping behind Ken House-Steele. They both dodged the issues early on, but this is kind of a nightmare for GT4 because DJ Alessandrini is already 1.4 seconds up on this one, and I happen to know from talking to him that his plan is to run flat out, just go, and try to get away.
Yeah, that sounds like a normal DJ plan. Just drive as fast as you possibly can. And so far, so good with that. Second and a half ahead of Ken O'Seal. But yeah, it is a dangerous thing giving DJ clean air because, as he said, he's just going to take it and run with it. As you see these guys, what's left of the GT4 field working their way on through. I'm trying to look through who got some damage or who. Oh, he's got a caution. Full course caution.
Yeah, so this is something I was going to mention. I just said DJ's plan was to just run flat out. Obviously, if you're just casual viewing, you think, well, duh, that's what you want to do. Well, the problem with that is tonight's 90-minute endurance race is absolutely right on the ragged edge of the length of time these cars can go on a tank of fuel. So that meant that DJ's plan was to hope for a full course caution and run flat out. He just got it, and now he knows that he can run flat out the rest of the entire race, and that probably means that everybody else who planned to do a pit stop now has to bend to that strategy. So there was going to be a lot of strategy involved in this one. Unfortunately, I think most of that just got thrown out the window, and I think we're pretty much locked into a no-stop race where tire conservation and raw pace is going to matter a lot more than it was before.
Yeah, and I was going to say we were going to take a look at the starting incident at the end of the race, but since we got a caution, might as well do it now. Fast forward just a little bit, and we'll catch up right as we went loose. Try to find a good camera angle as well. So here's a look at the replay here. These guys working through Sunset Bend. We'll see if TV2 can give you a better picture of how chaotic the start was. So pace car in for these guys. Again, this is a replay of the starting incident. You can see immediately we went 4 wide deep in the field.
Yeah, but keep an eye on Ido Waxman, who's on the far left there. Starts to show up the inside. Jonathan White protects it. And then I think the two of them might have touched just a little bit. White gets swept across the nose from LaRose. They were 4 wide for a moment. LaRose gets turned, and then there's basically nowhere to go. Even though that's a really wide section of track, there's just kind of nothing you can do once the field is scattered in front of you. And the 719 was one of the first cars to get involved. That was Sly Stafford. We'll take another look at it. But it was ultimately the charge from those BMWs. I think they didn't realize that they were 4 wide. And it was basically, I think Waxman, White, LaRose, and Seal, 4 wide overlapping here. Here's a look from LaRose's cockpit, and he gets turned on the nose of White. White goes along for the ride with him. And then it's just chaos.
Yeah, take a little look from this is what LaRose saw in behind him. All these cars scrambling about. Just kind of got squeezed. He got put between a rock and a hard place and nowhere for him to really go. See all the other chaos unfold as well. I want to take a look at what happened to Jonathan White. He was also a big loser out of all this. Sit right on board with his BMW machine. I think he was on the inside. I should take a look from the outside here. This is what we saw earlier. Him getting squeezed, end up getting into LaRose, and he himself also got sideways, smack dab in the middle of the field.
And that happens a lot when you have those 4 wide moments. When you're 3 wide, everybody's pretty aware of it. But when you have a 4th car on the far wing, a lot of times the 2 drivers on the outside don't know that you're 4 wide, and the 2 on the inside do know. So that's probably how that happened. Here's a look with Sly Stafford, gets into the back of Francois Brou as everybody starts to check up, and then Sly goes for a big slide. Must have gotten turned from somebody else as well. One of the cars that got hit really big is that Marlboro car number 66, which I think is Greg Obadia.
Let's take a look also at the TCR field because they also had a very interesting start as well. Not necessarily in turn 1. It took by the time to get to turn 3 to get pretty interesting here. And we saw David Alessi. He was trying to work his way up the order. And this really, I think, started with Elias Roman up near the top. So you see them work around the GT4 traffic, and then there you see a dive to the inside. I'm trying to see who that was that threw it in there.
Oh. Actually, Roman didn't make a mistake. Chrissy threw it in there a little too hard. The rear tires went out at the temperature. Roman tried to give him every bit of room that he could, but Chrissy drove him straight off the track for the most part. And then on rejoining, Roman kept his foot in it. So watch this. Chrissy goes up the inside, loses the back end just a little bit, starts to slide all the way to the edge of the track. Roman bails off. They touch a little bit, and then keeps his foot in it. They're still side by side and just coming back on the track. That happens so fast. There's really no way for that to have not turned into what it did once they made that initial contact. But unfortunately, it looks like John Chrissy's initial mistake is what kind of caused that whole catalyzed that whole problem.
Yeah, and Peter in the 56 car is able to take the lead. That's what we were riding on board with. That's how he took the lead of the race on lap 1. Didn't spend a whole lot of time in back, so we'll see what he's going to be able to do here. Now he's got the lead of the race. The interesting thing, too, is that there was a little bit of separation. We were talking about, maybe some overlap between the slower GT4 cars, considering how many there are out on the track, and some of the faster TCR guys. They're going to be starting right in behind the GT4 field now, so some of the slower guys are going to have to worry about this, and the TCR field might have to worry about traffic, which I'm sure they weren't necessarily worried about on their opening lap, so this is going to be interesting from their perspective as well.
Yeah, there were three GT4 cars, I'm sorry, that were slower than any number of TCR cars. So there's a couple of them that are going to be in the way, potentially, but usually that spreads out pretty quickly, especially with the first half of this lap being so straight and flat out. But again, I was really excited to kind of see how the strategy of this race started to unfold, because we were going to see drivers bank on a caution or bank on being able to run flat out and maybe take a splash and dash. And now we're pretty much forced into having to run the entire race green once we go back to green. Which I think absolutely favors the Cayman, which is a little lighter on its toes and tends to be faster in the long run, where the BMW is quicker out of the gate and is definitely quicker in a wheel-to-wheel racing instance where it can stretch its legs. But in the long run, the rear tires just start to go away, and then you're almost a sitting duck.
Yeah, we're talking about Waxman, who's had a pretty good start to this race. Moved from, I think it was 7th place up into 3rd. Kevin Zuma also from 9th up into 4th in his BMW, looking to stretch his legs now with some newfound track position. In fact, we'll roll through the rest of our starting order. Daniel Gross, 11th to 5th for him. Yeah, Andrew Kessel, 12th to 6th for him. Chris Lapras dropped from 5th to 7th place. Alex Rose, again, we saw him lose the lead. I'm actually curious to see the damage to that car as well. I'm not sure. Do these guys have faster pairs?
Yeah, I think they do get one. So this is actually good news for any of the drivers involved in that incident. They got to pit in, and there was a lot of action on pit lane over the last couple of minutes. So they took that opportunity to repair the car, and that's smart, because we're only 15 minutes, a little under 15 minutes into this one. If we go green, probably next time, I think. Looks like the lights are still on the pace car. So we got one more of these very long caution laps. And that will mean, by my mental math, about an hour and 10 minutes of green flag racing to complete once we get going.
Yeah, absolutely, and glad that we did see the caution come out. I think just to get some guys back in the mix of things, so keep the field nice and tight. And Alex Drini, I can't imagine that he is necessarily going to dampen his race at all. It's going to put Ken just that much closer back to DJ. So we'll see if he's going to be able to do anything fighting with the 61. We've seen these guys have some great scraps for positions in the past. Looking forward to seeing that again.
Pretty impressed with the starts from Waxman and Zhu. Both of those drivers really utilized the speed of the BMWs at the start. There is Waxman in the Hooters car and Zhu in the Repsol car. Those two were really aggressive on the start, and they got through the mess too. So those drivers didn't necessarily benefit from the cars spinning all over the place. Like
Are we?
A little further behind.
Are we doubling up for this restart?
Looks like it, yeah.
Oh boy.
So it's basically a clean slate with about an hour and 10 minutes to go.
Well, I guess this makes this question relevant more so than what I was going to say. After that really chaotic initial start of the race, and what are these guys going to do different, especially with a single file start, which is what I was expecting to see. Now they're going to double file up. Essentially, this is like the initial start version 2.0. So do you think these guys are going to take it a little bit easier now, or do you think you're going to see them charge up as hard as they did in the first start?
No, I don't think they have an option really other than Alessandrini, because remember, we're talking about the strategy of this race being so long. The Porsche is going to be benefited by that over the long haul. And I think it's really critical that any of those BMWs end up in front of him and control his pace, impede his progress just a little bit, so that as the pace starts to fall away of these cars naturally, they can continue to race. If Alessandrini starts to pull away, that car is just going to get better and better relative to the BMWs. So I think it's really important, especially for Hausiel, who has the raw pace to kind of match Alessandrini early on. I think Waxman and Zhu are going to be digging really deep to be able to match the pace of that Cayman that sits on the restart pole. It's important for any of them to slow down DJ's roll in any way they can.
Yeah, essentially this race is billed as the 90 minutes of Sebring. Essentially is going to be the 75 minutes of Sebring once these guys get back going. So a little bit, again, we were thinking that this is going to definitely play into DJ's hands here, being able to now push to his heart's content, not have to worry really anything about strategy. I'm sure that's just exactly how DJ likes it, just to push as hard as possible, but strategy on the back burner. So we'll see how he's going to be able to do with that case. I am really curious to see if Ken is going to be able to do anything. He's actually taking the lead, quote unquote, in his lane.
He gets the outside lane into turn 1.
Oh yeah,
a pretty good entry. So if he can stretch the legs of that BMW and sweep around the outside in turn 1, or maybe even close the door on the way into turn 1, that's exactly what he's got to do. And then basically just stay in the way, make that BMW as absolutely wide as he can.
Yeah, I wasn't going to take a chance to look at it, but take a look at the weather. It didn't change at all, really, from qualifying. I think the humidity stepped up about 2 degrees, but, sorry, 2%. Other than that, air temp, track temp, essentially the same as it was in qualifying, so similar conditions to what these guys were fighting with. If anything, clouds just come over the track. I'm not sure if it's going to get any more cooler. Imagine these guys are going to have to try to cool down after that initial start, so we'll see if they have it all, if it's going to be as crazy as it was. We saw 4 wide. We'll see if we can shoot for 5 here, as the pace car going to roll slowly down the backstretch, and again with the TCR field tucked up now, this time right in behind, ignoring the because they don't now need to leave that 15-second gap they do for the initial starts. We'll see if that's also going to cause some chaos in the back of the field. Also really close battle and some RG Bargy in the back. I'll see if there's RG Bargy in the front here. Through Sunset Bend we will go. The field getting controlled to DJ Alessandrini once again. As we wait patiently for the start of this race, see if there's going to be patience in the driver's pace car in. And the field unleashed now, getting ready for the throttle. There we go. Green flag back in the air at Sebring.
And DJ knew that that was really critical. Look at the lead he's got. It's at least half a car length. No opportunity for any of the BMWs to get by him. He protects into turn 1. Waxman is deep on the brakes. Whoa, that was close, but he takes over P2. Seal is 3rd, and then it's a position swap. Chris Lapras gets around. Danny Gross gets around.
Oh, and it looks like DJ went just a little bit wide. No, I thought he went a little bit wide into turn 3. He's going to stay just ahead of Ido Waxman. Then we got Ken O'Seal, Daniel Gross, Chris Lapras, your top 5. Oh, actually, no, as Kevin Zhu, I was going to say he was in the top 5, but he goes out into the grass. Everyone trying to avoid him. Going to drop down the order outside the top 10 for Zhu. Looking at the TCRs, as they've gotten their restart underway, they're also, again, working through some of the traffic, and it looks like throughout all this, David Alessi's in the lead.
Yeah, he's got a couple of GT4 cars between him and Peter Lausen, who was in the lead at the restart, so that's good for his progress. Look at Murphy Nichols deep on the brakes up the inside of Chris Harp. A couple of cars off in the grass on the way into that corner, but they're going to be able to rejoin no problem. So now it is Alessi with a good lead over Lausen, and Murphy Nichols takes over 3rd. He's been knocking on the door of a podium all season, so he holds that spot now, but there's a long way to go. And then it's Chris Harp and Will Robbins has some GT4 company.
Yeah, speaking of the GT4, back up with them. Alessandrini now working through the second half of the lap. Ido Waxman trying to hold off Ken O'Seal, who's charging back for second. Ken did not quite get as good of a restart as we would have hoped.
No, and he was disadvantaged by that outside lane. He didn't get enough of a charge to do anything with it, and now he's probably going to get held up a little bit by Waxman, because we've seen the tip of the tip of the hat goes to Seal on raw pace. But look at Waxman's actually closed it up in this section. This is the kind of mid-speed corners that we know the BMW should be a little stronger in. From talking to some of the drivers, can the BMW get going down the straightaway and pull away? Pull towards the back of Alessandrini.
Yeah, just about a 2-mile-an-hour difference, I think, heading down to the corner. Waxman's taking a very narrow line, very tight line into Sunset Bend. Going to have just a bit of overlap with Alessandrini, but now it's going to expand back on exit as Alessandrini gets a pretty solid one there to complete our first lap under green. Here at Sebring. So Alessandrini, Waxman, Seal, Lapras, and Gross, your top 5. Oh, as we see, Waxman, big dive to the inside into turn 1. Alessandrini going to go flying off the racing line. He's going to drop back down to 3rd. How about that?
I'm blown away at how racy Waxman looks right now. There was a little contact at the apex there. I don't think Alessandrini thought he was going to throw it in there the way he did, but I think Waxman had the right to that room, and Hauseel's going to go with him. So this is turning back into a dream situation for the BMW drivers. Now they just got to hold it in formation. Hauseel, though, I don't think he's thinking that. Look at him all the way to the back bumper. He pokes to the inside for the hairpin.
Yeah, here we go. He's not going to waste. This is his perfect chance to take the lead away and try to drive away from Alessandrini. He's going to go diving. 3 wide into the hairpin, and Waxman gets punted out into the hairpin. He's going to drop down the order.
And that's an uncharacteristic mistake from Alessandrini. There's no way he meant to throw it in there from that far behind. I think he's not maybe used to drafting these BMWs like that. And here's another look at it. Luckily, he had a middle of the lane to go through, but just way too deep on the brakes. Kind of returns the favor a little bit to Waxman, but I don't think that was a favor needed returning. And unfortunately, what had been a very, very, very good start for the 6 car is now all the way back to 7th.
And also a big group of cluster of cars right in behind Richard Spicer. You can see 5 cars all nose to tail here, and you got to be very careful when you run nose to tail here. You can see someone potentially get punted out of line. Andrew Chow and Alex LaRose, who started it way up the order. This is not a good restart for him. He's just trying to fight for 10th place here. He's currently in 11th, dealing with Evan Schickel.
Wow, and that's actually a number of drivers who didn't have good starts. Schickel was a bad start, and the 22, Jonathan White, is in there as well. So all these drivers were way up further in the order than they stand now. And there's Kevin Zhu still side by side with, I think, Sly Stafford behind them. So this is racing deep into the top 10 and it's just outside. Zhu keeps the position, but this is so much more action than I expected at the beginning of the longest, one of the longest, it is the longest race of the season here.
Yeah, I was going to say this race should be titled, guys, there's 90 minutes on the clock, because that's what we've seen so far. It's been an absolute blast. This is very entertaining. Again, as Tom hit the nail on the head there, a lot more racy than we thought it was going to be. Thought these guys were going to pace themselves. Nope, they've just been going at it like it's a normal sprint race, but it's been making it fun to watch here, especially as you're going to see now Alessandrini trying to chase down Ken Hauseel, who both of them get almost a little bit of grass as they head down to turn 3.
Well, and look who's still in the hunt. Chris Lapras has charged up to 3rd after starting 5th, and he's absolutely within touch of the leaders, and let alone Andrew Kessel, Danny Gross still there too. So if these guys kind of calm for a second, we might end up with a really tight battle. Depends on what kind of pace Hauseel can maintain and how long he can hold off Alessandrini. Because look at Alessandrini, he's already back on the back bumper of Hauseel despite a couple of mistakes. So I think the pace is still already a little bit in favor of the Cayman. And once that BMW starts to slow down, here's where the BMW starts to struggle a little bit, but then it comes into its own. The next basically run from turn 10 all the way back to turn 16, the BMW should be really fast.
Yeah, indeed. You saw Alessandrini close all the way to the back bumper, that BMW, then out of the corner, Hauseel just took off like a rocket, trying to break away from Alessandrini. This battle very close. You want to keep an eye on it for quite a bit here, because this is a battle for the overall lead. Still some separation in TCR.
Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on that battle in TCR. The closest battle is actually for 3rd between Chris Harp, Murphy Nichols, and Elias Roman, who's worked his way back up to 4th. There's
take a look
Roman
at it
on the back of Nichols.
Yeah, and Sam Scott, you see, he was a car we saw go flying off in the hairpin, and he's been able to try to recover. Going to throw it to the inside, do 2 for 1 on the TCRs, and that's allowed now for Roman to get a 1-up on Nichols, who's going to pinch into the apex and get around him. So Elias Rowan into 3rd in class, and there you can see also Nichols working past, and also Chris Harp trying to make some noise in 5th in class.
I believe from the race steward, I believe John Christie was given a penalty for the contact on that first lap. But back up at the front of GT4, look at the gap that Ken Hauseel's been able to pull out. That's a big surprise.
Whoa, is Alessandrini
so on the limit? Holy cow.
I thought he was going to go flying off into the grass and maybe even to the tire barrier, but just kept the tires within, well, I wouldn't say really the asphalt, on the concrete. I want to take a look at the lap times, too, between both these drivers. So Alessandrini last lap through, 2:11.995 for Hauseel, just a sliver faster, to 2:11.953.
And that's pretty wild to see, actually. Those lap times almost identical. Look at how fast the Porsche is at the beginning of this lap. He's back on the back bumper, having been about 3 car lengths behind at the exit of turn 17. So if this comes down to a mano-a-mano battle in the last lap, I think the BMW, being stronger in the last half of the lap, has got to be the car you want to be driving.
Yeah, we definitely saw. It is really amazing to see the lap time so equal. So we really saw that, as you said, the Porsche. You can see right here trying to really quick pulls all the way to the back of Hausiel, made up almost 3/4 tenths of a second. But now again, this is where Hausiel's going to stretch his legs here. You see DJ flashing the lights, trying to give a little bit of a distraction to Hausiel up ahead. To imagine he's got his head laser focused on breaking away, keeping Alessandrini back in behind.
And this is again where it's going to start to stretch back out. It's back up to a car length, maybe two. As Hausiel, the BMW is just really good in these mid-speed kind of point-and-shoot corners. Porsche closes up on the brakes, and then the BMW says, and pulls away once again. Lapras and Ketzel in the background getting a little closer to each other. And then there's a whole stream of cars. Check that out. The battle for 7th on back, 6th on back, really, with Waxman and then Kuracek, Spicer, Schickel, LaRose, White. All of those drivers are in the hunt for the bottom half of the top 10.
Well, this has been a very good race for Alex Kuracek so far, up from 18th to 7th place, and we still got over an hour to go. And again, ignore what it says on the ticker. There's not 8 minutes left in the race, although even though it looks like these guys are racing like there's 8 minutes left in the race, there is indeed another hour on top of that to go in this event. As you got Alex Kuracek trying to hold off Richard Spicer and Evan Schickel right behind. These guys have been having some pretty solid events so far. Here comes Spicer now with the move to the inside into Sunset Bend.
Going to turn it in a little earlier, get late on the brakes, but Kuracek's holding the outside. Schickel's going to try to go with him. Oh, they're going to touch at the apex. Kuracek catches it, and Schickel goes around.
Yeah, in the middle of Sunset Bend. Whoa, and a car taking evasive action. I think it was Kevin Zhu. I think he was able to avoid hitting the wall. This is a very bad place to be. And it looks like Schickel's just going to escape off the track. I think figured it wasn't worth trying to get looped around. Didn't really have an opportunity to do so. Back up, checking with Hausiel and Alessandrini. This battle stabilized out for now. Let's take a look back at TCR. David Alessi ahead of Peter. Oh, sorry, what?
Sorry, I just saw Alessi going for a huge slide, big flat slide into turn 17. I think he was feeling the pressure from Lausen and almost lost the back end. Now Lausen's got to run up the outside, which is going to clear easily before turn 1. Alessi shows the nose back to the inside, but Lausen's got it right now in the 56.
Yeah, I'm going to take a nice slide into turn 1, so we'll clear for position. We'll take a look at that too, because missed the initial slide of that, and take a look at how Lausen was able to get the lead away. Wow, that was a very big drift into Sunset Bend. That's exactly how Lausen was able to take it away. Look at that.
That's why I was so shocked. He's basically put your foot in it and pull the front end back in line, but lost a lot of momentum. Sam Scott still working his way through TCR traffic, and that Porsche Cayman easily gets through. But I think the question mark is how long does it take for Elias Roman to catch these two as they've swapped spots. But Roman is the next car on track. There he is in TCR running third.
Yeah, you can see he was the pole sitter for the class, and after his little spin earlier on in the event, wasn't the best of restarts for him either. Lost a little bit of time. He's currently sitting about 3 or so seconds back from the rest of these guys. So he's trying to chase them on down. We'll see if he's going to be a factor. If anyone's a factor in that class catching up, it is Roman in the 99 machine. Trying to look at some other close battles going on the track. Really, there's not many closer than the one for the lead in GT4. Alessandrini still trying to chase down Ken Hausiel. And do you think at this point, do you think Alessandrini maybe he realizes he's better pacing himself, or do you think he's trying every single corner?
No, I think, well, both. I think he's trying every single corner for sure, but I think the length of the race still benefits Alessandrini in the 61. So he has the benefit of being able to be a little more patient than Hausiel does. I think it's way more critical right now for Hausiel to nail every single corner and basically turn qualifying level laps all the way to the end of this race, because Alessandrini's car is, again, relative to the BMW, going to stay a little bit better. So that is why right now the 23's got to be so picture perfect. And that said, these two drivers are starting to pull away from Lapras and the rest. So they've built themselves a little bit of a buffer back into now what is the battle for 7th. I think LaRose is sweeping around Kuracek.
Yeah, and he's starting to come a bit back into his own again. I can't imagine how disappointed he is after starting up in second, looking like a driver that could potentially win this race. Is looking less and less likely. Still a long ways to go, but he's but he's 12 seconds back from the leaders. And again, those leaders being Ken Hausiel and Alessandrini, you can't expect them to lose a lot of time. But you see LaRose really big run on this is Lex Kuracek for 9th position, and to the inside he'll look.
The BMW is so good on the brakes, really, down into the hairpin, but the Cayman is going to get off the corner a little bit better. Tries to show to the inside, right onto the bumper, but nothing doing this time through. And they're just behind Jonathan White, who was able to benefit a couple of positions after the contact between Kuracek and Schickel.
I'll take a look at White, too, who's now up into 8th place again. Another driver on the climb forward through the field. Next, trying to deal with Richard Spicer.
And Spicer joined us for the first time last week at Imola, and I think he either missed, I'm trying to remember if he missed a start or if he just had a poor start and was back a little further in the field than we expected. But we saw him on the SCCA Esports Super Tour when the national SEC entity was running esports stuff, and he was really, really fast in the Spec Racer Fords, really fast in the Skippies, but looking like Jonathan White's got him covered. That was a really easy pass around the outside with some TCR traffic.
Yeah, trying to see who that is. Whoa, the thing was a 43. I think I saw a 43 pass by. Indeed it is. He's been struggling quite a bit all the way back in GT4 track, so he's already been lapped by the race leaders this event, so he's not been having a particularly good time. To see some guys get pretty squarely entering Sunset Bend. And in behind them, still some action with Alessi. Whoa! trying to work around the traffic. Or really traffic working around him.
Yeah, and speaking of traffic, at basically the entire top of GT4 is starting to encounter the back of the TCR field. There is the leaders that had just worked their way around John Chrissy. So they were able to clear him no problem. The Audi TCR just a couple of corners behind these two. There he is. So he's going to have to sink through the rest of the GT4 battles, which are all over the place in the top 10. But he gets a breather for a moment before Kuracek and the rest, Lapras and the rest catch him.
Yeah, you can see really the top 5 have broken away cleanly from the rest of the GT4 field. Really, it's the top 2 and then the next 3, the rest of the top 5 slowly trailing them behind, trying to chase these top 2 down. Now, Alison Drini doing the best he can to work. I see defensive line from Alcil, giving him a bit of a block as well onto entry. And it looks like Deej is starting to come a little bit more alive. We saw him never be that close into that section of track, so the Porsche's starting to come alive a bit here.
Yeah, and on the upper left, the timer, you can ignore that. We have 58 minutes left in this 90-minute event, so we're closing in on halfway, and I think you're completely right. The BMW is starting to lose its grasp on the tires just a bit. It doesn't look quite as strong. This will be its strongest section, and watch the BMW maybe start to pull away a little bit over the Porsche on these really flat kind of mid-speed corners. Look at him, so good on the brakes, actually in a little bit deep, but he's going to gather it up and have no problem maintaining the position all the way down to turn 17. And I think this is going to be a depiction of what is to come potentially. All the way off the track. That is so close.
Yeah, that was very close to race ending there. You didn't correct it back in the right direction or correct it back quick enough. Nice, solid driving by the 61 of Alcindrini to keep it on the track, but lost some time in the process.
I'm going to actually send a quick message to the race steward and find out what the incident limit is for tonight, because the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League does use incident limit points in their races. Typically it's 25 points for a 40-minute race, so I have to imagine it's closer to 50 tonight, but I want to know, because anytime you put a tire off the track like that, like DJ just did, you get a point on your incident limits, and if you maximize those points, if you hit the ceiling, you have to do a drive-through penalty in this race.
Yeah, we already saw, we definitely saw DJ get a 4X when he had contact with, it was Lapras, no, Waxman, that he ended up hitting in the hairpin. So that was definitely a 4X there. And I'm trying to think of anything else. So if anything's at minimum, I would say 5X. He might have also had a few more that we haven't seen on camera as well. So definitely working the way towards. Can't imagine there's a whole lot of leeway given to these guys, put to a high standard. You can't rack up too many incidents, especially in a 90-minute race.
Yeah, it's actually 45 today, so that's pretty low for 90 minutes. And with the number of contacts we've had, I imagine some drivers are probably closing in on 15 to 20 incident points on this race. Looking at a couple of them right now, I'm sure Alex LaRose has a couple of clunks, which are going to give him points. This is the battle for third, and these guys have pressed down as well. Look at the Porsche from Danny Gross starting to put pressure on the back of the number 12, Andrew Kessel.
Yeah, he's doing a really solid job here, sitting in behind both these guys. See him getting on the curb, maximizing corner entry here. And even his sport is starting to look a little bit better, but I did not get quite a good exit off the corner. You see Kessel just break away from him. Not much for Gross to do here other than get his head down and try to find some way around both these guys up ahead. Again, this battle is the rest of these guys in the top 5, chasing down Alcindrini and Hausil up the road. And
they've lost pretty good touch with it, but Danny Gross has caught Andrew Kessel, and they both caught Chris Lapras. Look at defending at the lead. Ken Hauseal all the way to the far right of the track before the BMW starts to stretch its legs, and he's going to have to protect now. He's on the full defensive at this point, which is still good. That's good news because he still controls the pace of this race. If you can make the BMW wide, I mean, 55 minutes is a long time to protect, but he's still better off than being behind Alessandrini, because at this point, Alessandrini would start to check out.
Yeah, and we started to see that when we had the initial start of the race. We saw Alessandrini was already a second and a half clear of Hauseal and company by the end of the first lap. So with that restart coming into play and Alessandrini making his big mistake, Hauseal was able to take the lead, and as I haven't seen a change for position just yet, although we're getting awfully close to it. You can see Alessandrini getting very close. If he can get a nice run out of the next few corners, could have a solid shot at the hairpin.
This might be it. He's got a really good run this time. He's going to poke underneath for the draft, and the draft doesn't really start to take effect until well into fifth gear. There he grabs fifth, so now it starts to chug along, but Hauseal, feeling the pressure, goes to the inside to defend. Does Alessandrini try the outside? Not this lap. He's got a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You can see Hauseal, he's going to try to cut him off. Alessandrini getting a little bit of grass on the exit. Can't quite get established alongside that BMW, so I'll have to try again.
I think it's really critical for Alessandrini to make the pass by turn 7 because he needs to lead through this section. The BMW is stronger here. If Alessandrini can control the pace for just one lap through this section, I think he's probably got the position covered. But it's going to be tough for him to get by in this section. I do think, although he's looking really racy, he wants that spot so bad.
Yeah, had a little bit of speed on the exit there of that next section they went on through, but then Mata back off here, and now Hauseal going to stretch his legs in his BMW, try to pull away a little bit. Although, again, every single lap, though, that happens, looks like Alessandrini's better in a few more sections, a few more corners than Hauseal, and he's starting to get on top of him in a lot more places. You'll see a lot of separation back from Lapras, who's now broken away from Kessel and Gross in the top 5.
Yeah, something must have happened there. I almost wonder if Gross got a run and tried to make a pass on Kessel, and it wasn't successful, but between the exchange, they lost touch quite a bit with Chris Lapras, who's now a pretty lonely third. Defending again is Hauseal up at the front. Wow, look at the dirt flying, trying to protect from Alessandrini, who's got a really good chance to try to hold the outside this time through. Chucks it in all the way out past the track limits that are painted there. No worries, and he goes for the over-under. The Cayman putting the power down, gets a run at the inside now.
Oh, yeah, and he has to work that again because the power goes to the BMW, but here comes Alessandrini with a little bit of a draft. Does he try to have a look in turn 1? Let's see, does he go inside, does he go outside? Neither. Looks like he's going to stay right in behind Hauseal.
Wow, this is so tense, and really Hauseal is kind of a sitting duck right now because, again, for 56 minutes left in this race, this is just going to eventually wear him out. I think what he's praying for at this point is starting to reel in the TCR cars, to maybe be able to break the battle between these two. Look at DJ, he's got a good run again out of turn 5. If he can make the pass by turn 7, Hauseal is in trouble.
And here they go into the hairpin. This is the most dangerous spot for Hauseal. This is where DJ can really try to send it into the corner. Can't quite, though, this time. Not as good as his last attempt. Oh, hits Hauseal. Makes some contact. There is another 4X for both those drivers, actually. And it looks like, if anything, that helped Hauseal out.
Definitely, yeah. Chrome Horn at the apex of turn 7. DJ was trying to roll the speed. Hauseal was in a little bit deep, went for the apex early. All fairness, he completely controlled the corner at that point, but Alessandrini, in trying to roll that speed, gave him a good clunk in the back bumper, which, as you said, only hurt Alessandrini at this point. Looks like now he's probably going to take a lap to get back up to the bumper, so a little bit of a breather for Hauseal, which is welcome and probably very much needed.
Yeah, curious to see if there's any damage between the two. Looks like both cars got off unscathed. It wasn't that hard of a hit, so they'll continue on without any damage to either machine. Check a look down the rest of the field. It's got a little bit of separation here. Here's this battle closing in again between Gross and Kessel. These guys have not been able to break away from each other at all since the drop of the second green flag.
Yeah, Gross looks really good right now. The pace of that car is basically a mirrored image of what we were watching for the battle in the lead. Cayman faster, but nowhere around. Following the very cool livery of Andrew Kessel down the Sunset Straight. Pokes the nose. Danny Gross tucks back in just for a moment, trying to apply the pressure.
Yeah, not quite able to get established alongside. Let's take a look at the TCR battles. We've ignored them for quite a bit. Peter Lausen in the 56 up at the top of the charts. David Alessi trying to chase him down. There's a bit about 2 seconds of separation, but notably, look who's a lot closer than the last time we checked in on these guys. Elias Roman in the 3rd place, closing in on Alessi, and also Peter Lausen in the 56.
Yeah, Roman's been really masterful this season in managing whether he be leading or from behind. So I have to imagine that he knows he's got plenty of time, 55 minutes or a little less, and he'll be able to both manage the front tires of the 99, but also put in some good clean laps. I see Alessi's looking a little more ragged just in front, but the battle for 4th behind them between Murphy Nichols and Will Robbins, that one's hot and heavy between 4th and 5th. There they are. Robbins is in the Grid Life car from behind Murphy Nichols in the silver Audi in front, back to his usual livery after running a Veterans Day livery last week. Robbins looks like he might have the pace to make a move on Murphy some point.
Yeah, look at these guys trying to wheel these TCR machines front wheel drive through Sunset Bend. Really good line for Robbins. Gonna try to get established alongside the 5 of Murphy Nichols here. A drag race for both of them down the front straightaway.
Oh, real quick, I just noticed Andrew Kessel had an issue early on up at the front. Danny Gross is also behind him, but both Ito Waxman and Jonathan White have gotten through. White is up the inside of Waxman, and this is now the battle for 4th between these two BMWs. They're still side by side, headed towards turn 13. White has the inside now for that corner. Waxman's trying to run the outside, but it's not going to work. I don't know what happened between Kessler and
let's
Gross.
take a look, but this battle's still pretty heated. White did not get a good exit at all. Waxman going to try to take advantage of that. Here they go through the S's on the back half of the track, side by side through this section. And it looks like...
Look at how ragged Waxman was on the brakes there, but he hangs onto it and takes the position. He's in a little bit deep, gets a little behind this transitional section. It looks like there was contact at the root of that between Kessel and Gross. I can't find further back than that, but look at White now still tucked behind and up to 4th for Waxman.
Yeah, after starting in, for Jonathan White, started in 5th, for Ito Waxman started in 7th, up into 4th, so he's been able to climb forward today. Still not done just that. There you see White chuck it to the inside of Sunset Bend, keeping it nice and tidy to the apex, going to blow on past Waxman. Waxman going to try to get a good run off the corner. Indeed he does, and now they're going to have a drag race down the front stretch. And
a mirrorful of Danny Gross, who has gotten by Andrew Kessel finally. They're still side by side down into turn 1. Waxman with the inside, turns in early, goes for the apex. White hoping for the over-under. Look at it, it's going to work. He's going to get the inside for turn 3 now. Whoa, they almost touch at the exit of 1.
Some great back and forth action. Neither driver looking to be the better one at the moment. There you see White finally dive to the inside of Waxman. He's going to stay ahead, but I don't think it's going to last for too much longer at the rate they've been going at.
No, and check out who joined the battle. Flashes into screen just there. It's the dark red Cayman of Alex LaRose. He's charging back and has joined the battle for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and he runs 8th. So the longer these two battle, the better it's going to look for anybody to join this one. At the front, it's still House Seal, Alessandrini, a lonely lap race in 3rd.
Oh, as you see White make a mistake, and that's allowed Waxman to get back in the mix. Great stuff here.
This is so awesome. I'm loving this.
And you'll see Waxman's able to get a good enough run down the stretch into the next corner. Ooh, he's going to peel out, going to try to make a dive. It was a bit of a half-hearted attempt. Not able to get established alongside, but that checked up everyone in behind. Gross is now on the back bumper, and Kessel, he's dealing with LaRose in behind.
Kessel's going to be exhausted of these Caymans charging, and nothing doing this side. Oh, he runs wide. LaRose is going to get an easy open door. Gets alongside. Boy, they almost touch at the exit of turn 13, but the BMW starts to breathe once again. Closes the door there. They've lost touch with the battle for 4th.
Yeah, I want to look at other stuff as well, but I don't want to step away from this because there's been some fantastic stuff here, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, especially now as Gross, he's starting to stretch his legs, and his Porsche Cayman in behind. You can expect him to try to make a pass on one of these two guys again. These guys were up ahead, never quite got the chance to take a look at what happened between himself and Kessel again, and can imagine there was some sort of contact between the two that put them back in this battle.
Yeah, whatever I could find, it was basically in turn 7. There was some sort of contact, and Danny Gross looked like he actually lifted to make sure Kessel didn't lose position.
Oh!
Really wide.
Really wide indeed. Almost makes it a 4 wide run through. I'm going to go 3 wide through Sunset Bend for a second as Waxman was flashing in and out. He somehow gets ahead of all these guys, and actually Gross is the biggest loser out of all that.
I don't know how that happened, but Ito made a mistake on the way in. Gross looked like he might have had some target fixation, and then LaRose and Kessel
Oh, yeah,
side too. Wow, look at that.
A lot of overs, a lot of unders, and out of all that, Waxman was able to get ahead, but they all lost a lot of time up to White, who was clearly broken away now for fourth place. Second and a half off the road from the rest of these guys.
Yeah, and I have to imagine the fastest car in this entire group is probably Alex LaRose, because he was the high qualifier. He was up in second when the green flag flew the first time, and it was the contact between White and LaRose that put them both way further down. So now, unfortunately for LaRose and Gross, they have the weaker race car and probably the faster lap times available to them. The Cayman just doesn't seem like it's got a very good opportunity to pass the BMWs around this place.
Yeah, right behind us, Kevin Zhu outbreak Layton into the hairpin, and Kevin Zhu's gonna get the spot, and that is for 9th place for the 243. He's been having a solid day up from, well, he's been starting 9th, running in 9th. Guess you can't really ask for much better than that. He didn't lose any spots so far. Ooh, also some staking behind. Richard Spicer trying to defend from, sorry, no, that's not Richard Spicer. Les Kershak trying to defend from Spicer and Andrew Chow. And Chow, I think first time we mentioned him, this race started back in 22nd all the way up into 13th.
Oh, we're side by side for the lead. Allison Drini got a good run outside of turn 7.
All right, here we go. There we go, now onto the back stretch, and here he comes now charging on Ken Househill, and he's going to be right there, established, potentially established alongside into Sunset Bed. Here he goes, going to pull out to the left side of the track, going to try to do an over-under here on Househill.
Big long trail break for Househill, and the BMW closes the door. Allison Drini gets a good run to the outside, but look at that BMW when the turbos spool, it just goes. It just starts to pull away. I think it's a turbo anyway, and the 6-cylinder of the BMW has the legs over the 6-cylinder in the Porsche. Allison Drini shows the nose, but nothing doing into turn 1.
Yeah, no, whatever it is on that BMW has definitely allowed him to gave him enough power to break away from Allison Drini. He's been all over. You can see Allison Drini every single corner trying to dive up, find some sort of lane he can get past on Househill. But look at him all over the back bumper. Househill's got to be careful not to hit him.
Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on this one just while we were watching the other battles just to see what was going on. And every single lap, Allison Drini's gone for the outside into turn 7. Househill protects the inside. I bet it happens again, but it hasn't worked yet. This is one of the less overlaps they've had down into the hairpin. And it's just so hard to protect when you're in this position as a driver. You have to be so perfect for Househill to maintain the point and maintain exactly where he knows Allison Drini is going to end up and try to get around him. For him, he's having the drive of the century right now just to protect as long as he has, because Allison Drini's tried absolutely everything and he just can't find it.
Yeah, it does seem like that's the case here, and actually also too, right in behind these guys, you can notice one BMW slowly closing into the picture. Lapras was a half a second faster than Househill last lap through, so he's slowly breaking his way into the picture, potentially could be a contender for the lead.
Yeah, he's in the catbird scene a number of ways. Number one is the one we don't want to see. I'll knock on wood that we don't see contact between the leaders, but oh, Jonathan White, 22 has an issue.
Yeah, he's really slow for some reason. Not sure what's the case. He's putting at around 40 miles an hour. Can't seem to go quite faster than that. I'm not sure what's up. Finally, he gets the car up to speed. Let's see what on earth happened to him. And remember, he was running in 3rd place. Did the engine just die? Or pit limiter?
It almost looks like maybe he had a steering wheel issue or something. Something might have fallen off the desk, or this is kind of one of those, like, what in the world possibly could have happened?
And riding on board with White, it was out of the hairpin here.
Yeah, it almost looks like his wheel came disconnected. Just car goes straight, stops shifting, stops accelerating. He gets it figured out, gets reconnected, whatever issue it was.
I'm trying to see what
probably a hardware issue on his end.
I see a flashing yellow light in his car. I'm not sure that's the pit limiter or something. Huh.
Tough to say, but what that has done is
I think he hit the pit limiter or something, because it looks like he's pacing at a steady pace. I think he's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I have to imagine whatever it was a hardware issue. You're right, it was the speed limiter was on, but there was more going on than just that as he went straight for a moment. It's promoted Alex LaRose up to 4th though, and LaRose has clear track, gets to start to focus on catching Lapras. It's 12 seconds that Danny Gross up the inside of Waxman.
Whoa, and tries to get on by, but can't quite get it done. But that just shows you in such a long race, speaking of which, we're just about, in about 3 seconds time, we'll be halfway through this race. And this shows you how the turntables over the course of a longer race, as we saw.
How the turntables.
How the turntables, yeah. As you saw White running up in fourth, really solid fourth place, dropping all the way back to 13th, and he's going to probably be there for quite a while. See if he can try to work his way back up yet again. As you look at Waxman with a mirror full of Daniel Gross and Andrew Kessel, and they were also looking pretty good at one point.
Yeah, so we're basically down to 3 drivers who have not had any sort of major incident in this race. Hausil, Alessandrini, and Lapras. And then it's dramas for basically everybody else. The worst, the best of them are Alex LaRose. Then we ride on board with Guido Waxman, who sits 5th, chasing by Danny Gross and Andrew Kessel. Gross is probably quicker, but we've seen consistently across the board that is really tough for a Porsche Cayman to make a pass on the BMW M4 GT4.
It definitely helps in that a BMW GT4 makes a mistake, as we saw Waxman Gross going all the way out to the grass, trying to get established alongside on the outside of a sweeping left-hander. Wasn't able to continue the speed there. Oh, as Waxman gets on the curb and goes flying out sideways into the tire barrier, I think.
Yeah, it's a big hit in the back of that car. He gets it going again, finds some clear track to rejoin, but he's going to drop outside the top 10 now as Richard Spicer sweeps around him.
And take a look as a replay here. What happened to Waxman? The car just snapped on him here. Went in way too hard into this corner, clipped over the curbs, and around. The car went violently.
Wow, there was no way he was catching that one. He was trying, actually. He was in a little bit deep, straightened the wheel up, and I'm really surprised to see the car got away from him. Just that quick look at it, caught the ridge of the curb.
Yeah.
Goes for a ride. Not that bad of a clunk. The rear wing is still on it, so I think that car will have pace in it still.
Up in front, though, we want to take a look. Whoa, as you see Hannah Seal go out wide, that's not going to do any favors for him down the straightaway. Now here comes DJ Alessandrini. This could be his best chance yet.
Potentially. Actually, Alessandrini was up the inside in turn 3, and Hausil defended from the outside. It was a really good move. And Hausil, once again, this is kind of classic, what we've seen every single lap. Alessandrini outside. Hausil takes the apex, gets the pedal down in the BMW, blocks him, and is able to gap him just enough towards turn 10. So it's just a carbon copy lap after lap. Hausil is probably exhausted at this point, but he's got 42 more minutes to go, and I don't think there's any reason to take a breather. I don't think there's any reason to take a pit stop or even consider it because of that extended full course that we started with.
Yeah, that knocked off essentially 15 minutes of race time from the duration of the race, so definitely should have given these guys enough to save potentially of their equipment to carry on the rest of the distance. And you definitely, if you can, you definitely want to, because that pit stop is going to be costly under green flag conditions. There you see TCR on the background. Not exactly sure who that is. Speaking of TCR, I want to quickly go because that battle is pretty close. The interesting thing here is that Elias Roman, he was actually up in second place, ended up making a mistake, I think, at some point, fell back in behind David Alessi for that second place spot. Everyone's still trying to chase Peter Lausen, but no one's been quite able to touch him just yet.
And he's been nice and consistent, so he's actually got what is that, a five or so second lead over these drivers. But on contrast, the battle for GT4 is not going anywhere. Alessandrini around the outside once again. Hausil has been masterful at protecting the inside, putting the car on exit where it needs to be, and he does it once again. And that BMW, by the strength of its straight line speed, it seems to be pretty invincible when it comes to passing. It's down to mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the big thing, too, you know, looking at how we were talking about him having to defend. He's had to defend from Alessandrini ever since the drop of the second green flag. So he's been out here for at least half an hour now, even more as he's going to get into the grass just a little bit, keeping that 61 in behind him. He's been in his mirrors this entire race. And we know Hausil is a very good driver, but at what point, you know, does that start to wear on you, having the same guy in behind you lap after lap after lap? Do you think there's a possibility of him making a mistake?
I hate to say it, I'm not wood for his sake, but I think it's an inevitability at this point, and the question becomes whether he can salvage that mistake and keep in touch with Alessandrini. He does have the lucky circumstance of smart circumstance. Whoa, a little bit of overlap. Holy cow, that's tight.
DJ almost took the camera off.
Yeah, the BMWs it seems like they rebound better from small mistakes and incidents, so he has a little bit of wiggle room with that. But I really think it's down to... Whoa, that was really good move. Alessandrini on the inside on the brakes. Now he claims the inside for a couple of corners, and this is really forcing the issue. Seal around the outside takes the inside back for turn 13.
But doesn't quite get a good enough line. DJ potentially going to try to do the over-under here, but this is the straightaway we've seen the BMW come alive, and it looks like Alessandrini's going to have nothing for Seal. But that was pretty unexpected.
Yeah, that was masterful from Seal. I'm impressed from Alessandrini, but I'm more impressed from Seal to just hold it and keep his cool every single time DJ throws something at him. And actually, DJ had a little bit of a slide at the apex of turn 13, which slowed his roll. Gives Seal a whole car length to work with now. Coming onto the back straightaway, 39.5 minutes to go. Lapras still looming, but not really able to make any. Still hitting that 3.5 seconds back.
I also do want to take this time to apologize for anyone in the TCR field that's watching this after the fact and not seeing your car. We do apologize because the GT4 battle has been absolutely insane to watch this entire race. These guys have not gotten separated more than a second since the drop of the green flag.
And as you said that, it looks like Elias Roman swept around the outside of David Alessi and took the position back. It was a good move on the brakes down into the hairpin. Got it done on the entry. Shuts the door and takes back over that second spot. Now he starts his march 5 seconds up the road to the race leader.
Yeah, let's see. It looks like he's going to try to have a maybe potential look into the next corner, but not quite able to do so. So now Elias Roman trying to chase down about 6 seconds up the road is Peter Lausen, and he's starting to run out of time now with less than 40 minutes in this race. So time's ticking for Roman. He's got to get on the loud pedal and get back up there. Oh, here we go, back into the hairpin yet again. Where have we seen this so many times before? Alessandrini going to be established alongside of the outside into the hairpin. Let's see if it's going to be enough. Ooh, we got a decent run out of the corner, but is Seal going to let him keep it?
No, easily puts the pedal down and takes the spot back. Seal knows exactly where the strengths of that BMW lie, and they're maximizing them for sure. This is where Alessandrini tried the outside last time. No... Not this time. Seal shuts the door, puts the car kind of in the middle of the lane. That's at turn 11, and now loses some distance. Holy cow, this has just been so intense. These little breathers are life-saving for Seal.
I want to take a look at that from DJ's point of view. That could have been disastrous for both of them if he decided to keep the throttle in. They're looking at the exit right here. Thought of having a look at the inside, jumped on the brakes. He paid the price a little bit for it, about half a second back, but I don't think it's going to take him too long to get back up there for the lead.
No, I agree, and just can't say enough how gentlemanly this racing has been. Not only between these two, but in general, since the restart, we've seen a lot of gentlemanly moves and a lot of really, really, really close racing, but nobody bullying anybody else, really, and it's turned into some of the best racing I've ever seen. Here is Murphy Nichols and Will Robbins still glued together. Robbins up the inside for turn 3, deep on the brakes. Nichols chucks it around the outside and is going to hold the position.
Yeah, really solid move by Nichols there. It's tough to hold the outside in the TCR. Oh, I say that as he's going to get a little bit sideways here onto the straightaway. We got a better exit than Robbins, so Robbins now going to have to try to chase back down Nichols. Nichols holding on to 4th place in class. Good job for him. Alessi also still within touch of Elias Romans. That's where the TCR battle stands for the major positions. Let's see. Let's look at John Williman and Brian McCrea, 7th and 8th in class. Actually, it looked a lot closer. What happened to... Oh, I actually think something just happened to the 28. Well, maybe not, actually. He was in the pits. Never mind about that. Timing and scoring was being a little bit haywire on my end. Back up to the front. Seal ahead of Alessandrini, as they've been for the last few minutes there to see DJ make a move to the outside. I feel like DJ, I've seen him make him boost to the outside. Oh, never mind. It actually might have worked for him. Here he's going to be back on the inside. The old switcheroo, they're going to door each other down this straightaway.
And that was the inevitability we talked about. Seal still has the overlap. That car recovering from his mistake pretty well, but this is going to be so hard for him to maintain this outside run. Deep on the brakes. Alessandrini's even deeper. They're going to go side by side through the apex. Whoa, this is so tight.
Yeah, DJ.
No way.
No he does. Yeah, I think Alessandrini had a bit of slip, if I heard correctly from the car's tires. I heard him slide a little bit on exit. That gave Seal enough of time to get back and ahead of Alessandrini. This has been some absolutely fantastic stuff.
I am blown away at that. I can't believe he recovered from that one mistake, and that's what we were talking about with it being a little bit better on the recovery from those mistakes. The BMW straight line speed saves Hausiel from that first mistake in 45 minutes, mind you. That took him 45 minutes to make one slip up. That would have been multiple races worth of perfect laps. But here he holds the outside and claims the inside for turns 11 and 12 and easily takes the position back from Alessandrini.
Yeah, we're talking about that BMW coming alive in the second part of a lap, and there you saw it right then and there when both of them were side by side. Hausiel, having the preferred line, jumped on the gas and broke away from Alessandrini yet again.
And that makes it even more critical. Alessandrini just learned something in that exchange. He's got to get this job done with probably 2 or 3 laps to go and start to gap. If it takes him that long, if it takes him another 30 minutes to get it done, I don't think it can be a last lap move because of how strong Hausiel is and the BMW are on the last half of this lap.
Wow, man, DJ's really pushing out. Every corner I see him coming out, that car's flying out a little bit sideways, but he's just pushing that much harder to get back to Hausiel. And look at him heading through these corners. You can see how aggressive he's trying to keep up with Hausiel here. Hausiel a little bit sideways. Oh, this could be it right here. Big mistake from Hausiel, another one within a consecutive laps, and here he's going to be to the inside into the hairpin. We'll see what's going to happen here. Deep on the brakes, both these drivers go, and it's going to be Alessandrini that's going to squeeze ahead of Hausiel, but didn't quite get back on the power. Hausiel's back on the power, and they're side by side again, and with TCR traffic up ahead.
Carbon copy of last lap, but Hausiel's going to shut the door this time through. Alessandrini had a slide on the way out of the hairpin. Now he over-unders him on the entry to the turn 10. Oh, it's tight. They clear each other, and they're not quite back to the TCR car yet. Hausiel manages to recover from the mistake once again, like you said, within the same lap. And now both of these cars looking like they've used up most of their resources. They're now down to, not the most ideal tires. The weight is starting to really change balance-wise with the amount of fuel that they've burned. And I remember talking to Alessandrini and Hausiel both before this race. The Porsche seems to get faster because of the fuel burn off of the nose, where the BMW doesn't necessarily change much balance-wise. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that does coincide with what we're seeing on screen. And speaking of which, also the lapper's a little bit squirrely in behind, but he's also been catching up as well. These guys have been going at it. They've been running slower laps, but they don't care because they're trying to go for it. Ooh, Alessandrini up into the dirt off the track, trying to find some sort of line of Hausiel, who cuts him off aggressively into Sunset Bend.
DJ almost had a nose on him on the way in, but couldn't quite get the job done on the brakes. And now Hausiel gets the throttle down and maintains the point once more. So he's led every single lap in the last 45 minutes, despite losing the point a couple times. Alessandrini shows the nose on the way into turn 1. Is he going to dive? No, backs out of it.
Yeah, you saw him swerving a few times there, trying to keep Hausiel guessing when he was going to dive. Hausiel not buying it at all, and he just kept in his own line to keep ahead of Alessandrini. So those tricks not working at the moment.
We don't need to cut to him, but I'm just keeping an eye on the close battles for 5th between Danny Gross. Andrew Kessel is still completely glued together. Ido Waxman is hot and heavy in it with Andrew Chow between the two of them for 9th and 10th. And Elias Roman has not actually been able to shake David Alessi quite yet. They're still nose to tail in TCR. So Lausen, by the merit of that battle, is maintaining the point. Hausiel's in deep again.
Oh, he's been really throwing it away at this hairpin now, and here they go side by side. But again, this BMW been able to see it stretch its legs. Might not be the case this time by as Alessandrini. He's going to get clear. Hausiel not done yet. He's going to try to dive it up the inside. And it doesn't quite look like it. He's going to be on the inside now, stuck on the outside. Alessandrini should have the preferred line. He's going to establish himself as the leader for the first time this race in about, I want to say, 50 minutes.
Oh, and that big BMW, he thought about it to put it up the inside of turn 13. He's got a couple more corners. Look at him, opposite lock on the way out of the corner. The rear end grip of the BMW is starting to go away, but we've seen slides from the back of the BMW, or from the back of the Cayman and Alessandrini as well. They're starting to work into the TCR traffic, so this will be the first time that we have intermingled classes. Look at the entry speed from Hausiel, but I think he needs to claim this spot back down Sunset straightaway, or this is where DJ can start to check out. He's done a good job. Look at Alessandrini, a little mistake.
Yeah, and you can see go on the back of Alessandrini as they fly on past the TCR. Speaking of flying, look at Seal with the draft and that BMW horsepower going to try to pinch Alessandrini. Not going to give him enough space in the sunset. Here we go. Wow, going to almost make DJ hit the entry wall as he's going to try to work around the outside for the lead.
And he holds the outside. He was really aggressive on the way in. A little bit of a bullying down to the wall pinned him there. And Seal takes the lap back once again, leads it at the line. So this is basically Alessandrini trying everything he's got at different places to make this thing happen. And every single time, Seal still beats him back to start finish.
Man, this is some incredible racing these guys have been putting on for the last hour or so. Here we now see a dive from DJ Alessandrini into turn 3. He's going to throw it in a little bit tight. Seal going to get on the grass, going to cut the corner a little bit, but somehow going to end up ahead of Alessandrini.
No way. He can absolutely this one up. And look at how close Lapras is getting. He's within 2 seconds now, a second and a half.
Yeah, the way
car is coming.
These guys are slowing each other down quite a bit. Lapras is going to be a factor at this, right? But here we go, side by side into the hairpin again. Seal's been making mistakes the last few times. Going to throw it in very deep. Going to park himself in the apex, but Alessandrini still finds a lane on by, but it's not going to be enough. We've seen this BMW horsepower come alive on this stretch, and indeed it'll do so. Alessandrini going to have to sit in behind yet again.
No, and I almost think, if I'm Seal, I want Lapras to join this battle, because it's going to give me a little bit of a break, maybe distract DJ just a little bit. We're absolutely on the critical pivot point on this race where the Cayman is faster. It's obvious at this point. We can see it with our bare eyes that the 61 is the faster car, and Seal will not continue to get the combination of lucky and good every single time Alessandrini mounts an attack. Look at Alessandrini hanging the back end out, kicking dirt, and Lapras is within a second now for the first time.
Yeah, Lapras I think he's pretty much established himself as a factor here. He's doing a second ahead of Alessandrini. He is a factor. It's officially a 3-way battle for the lead. We'll see what Lapras, and again, we talked about these guys pushing. These guys have been pushing each other all race. Lapras has had some time to just kind of, get his head down, just kind of drive normally and put on some solid pace to catch these guys. So I would argue he's got some fresher tires to work with in these two.
Yeah, that's potential. He certainly looks more composed, but that is not to say because he's not been put offline or anything else. He hasn't had to recover from anything yet. Like you said, he's just been able to put clean laps down. That Porsche that just popped into the back of your frame, that's Alex LaRose running 4th. He's clawed back about 5 seconds of this lead, so he's running really fast laps right now with still 28 minutes to go in this race. I don't think he gets there, but he's done a really, really good job to establish himself a strong 4th at this point.
Yeah, I think he's kind of just hoping and licking his chops that all 3 of these guys up ahead of him won't reckon he can just work his way on through for the lead. Although, with the way these guys have been racing each other really aggressively. SCCA, they've been giving each other a lot of room as well. Many times they could have easily made contact, but they've given room to the other racer. So we'll hope to see that respectful racing continue. We still got half an hour left of this race.
Some of the best and most respectful racing I've seen. Real quick, back in TCR, Elias Roman actually lost the position once again to David Alessi. So Alessi's done a really good job to claim the 2nd spot again multiple times from Roman. So we keep an eye on this lead for GT4.
So you're going to try to pull to the left side of the track again, but not going to quite get established alongside. You can see Lapras, a big dive from him. Ooh, Lapras, I think, might have overshot the corner. He lost some time, I think. But Alessandrini all over the back of Seal, and now we're really starting to look ahead of both these guys. Some TCRs are approaching. I thought there was more. It looks like there's only one directly ahead.
Yeah, with only about 12 of them in the race total, I think they're going to find them in kind of random interspersed moments, but it only takes one interference from a TCR car that can't disappear. They don't have to disappear, and they certainly sometimes can't. But Seal, this is one of the more dominant runs through this section that we've seen. Alessandrini picks up another incident point with an off track right there. I don't have a way to count that, but that's going to be tough.
Yeah, you see, Seal get past the TCR is going to might be in the way of Alessandrini here through this next corner.
Yeah, that's a gift for Seal for sure. Alessandrini is going to get held up for just a moment here. Not bad, but just enough to be distracted. And what that's done, look at that. Lapras is going to be able to motor past this TCR car easily down the straightaway. And Alessandrini, if anything, lost a significant amount of time, 8/10 that time through. Lapras is within a half second of him, ducks to the inside of the TCR car, and the 20 gets a good gift from there.
Yeah, as you said, BG the big loser out of that. Now you can see Lapras starting to close ever so slightly on that 61 of Alessandrini. And Lapras trying to see if he can put himself into 2nd place. It's been a while since he's been inside the top 2. I don't think he actually has been inside the top 2 at all this race.
No, he was very close. Had a couple of moments early on to try to get there. while these guys have been the furthest apart they've been this entire race, the battle for fifth is kind of the closest it's been, with Danny Gross actually got run back down by Andrew Kessel and Tom Layton.
I think might have seen some contact there, or if not, just car very loose for Andrew Kessel, with Layton right in behind. And again, Layton starting up, or started in 6th place, back in 7th place, chasing both these guys down up ahead. Another pretty close battle. We continue looking at GT4, which is kind of the most separated it's been for quite a while. And trying to see if we can take a look at anything else here and get a little bit of a breather from looking away from the Alessandrini and Halcyon show.
Yeah, I'm definitely watching that battle for fifth, because Gross was the quicker car for a long time in that Cayman, but all of a sudden Kessel and Layton have found speed in the BMWs to get back towards the back bumper of that 24 car. There's the 24 leading towards turn 7 again this lap, but then the back half of the lap, those BMWs, especially if they're smart enough to realize, I was going to say work together for a little bit, but looks like the 18 of Layton was thinking about showing the nose on Kessel in the black car in the middle.
Yeah, I can't imagine you really necessarily want to use the chrome horns. It's not stock car racing. In sport car racing, you want to be a little bit nicer to your competitors, and we've seen that for the most part. Other than a big incident in turn 1, lap 1, race has been pretty clean and green. I haven't really seen a whole lot of other incidents, or at least car-to-car incidents on track. We've seen a lot of self spins and single car incidents.
Well, this Washington, D.C. region SCCA Virtual Racing League season has been one of the cleanest I've ever seen in sim racing, and I'm knocking on my table again. But we haven't had that big opening lap incident on any of the previous 4 rounds to start the season off. So I guess we were due in one sense, but since then it's been super, super clean.
And taking a look at Sam Scott real quick, we saw him. He was in the midst of the TCR traffic at one point earlier in the race. He's worked his way back up to 15, now trying to work on 14th here, working on Greg Obadia, that's in the 66 car right ahead of him. And take another check in our leaders, because can't trust the gaps. Imagine them closer a lot more. But it looks like Alessandrini's kind of keeping himself a little bit away from Halcyon. Do you think maybe he's used up too much tire to keep up pace with Halcyon, or do you think he may be saving for one last run?
Perhaps. I mean, I've seen a lot more drama out of the 61 than I expected. I thought that car would stay composed for a lot longer, but the rear end of that car has looked pretty nervous, and he's had a number of off tracks. Obviously, he's gotten back eventually now. He's certainly there once again and was able to pull away from Lapras pretty quickly, but I don't think the 61 is as strong a car as we thought it would be this late in the race. And he now comes back to Groundhog's Day again, trying to look on the outside of the hairpin. Halcyon easily covers him on the brakes, and we'll probably do a wash, rinse, repeat of the second half of this lap, as we've done many times before. Back at TCR, Elias Roman is back through in second, so he and David Alessi are probably having every bit as good a battle as Alessandrini and Halcyon are. And we've missed a lot of it, but those two swapping positions a number of times this race.
Yeah, this is a bit surprising. I would have thought we've seen, I would have expected to see Roman just break away from Alessi and try to chase down Lausen up ahead, but it has not been the case. These guys, as you mentioned, have been exchanging second position on and off this entire race, and this is on another occasion where they're right on each other's bumpers.
Yeah, and it's close to 8 seconds from Roman and Alessi all the way up to the leader of Peter Lausen, and this has been Peter Lausen's best run, flash in traffic in GT4 at the back, but those two for second. The reason I'm surprised that Roman wasn't able to pull away is he's been really, really good at managing the car throughout this season and managing traffic situations as well. So I would have expected him to kind of keep more in the tanks and start to pull away from Alessi. Now he's doing that, but we've seen that kind of swap back a number of times.
Yeah, well, it's curious seeing too, because here these guys on the front straightaway now, and actually here is your GT4 lead, so they're actually starting to close in on the TCR leaders while two of them are in the midst of a battle. So it's gonna be interesting here towards the end. I'm not sure if they will catch them, but I think it might be close.
We're closing in on 20 minutes, so this would be basically half of a normal race we have yet to go. And I totally agree. As they start to catch more clusters of TCR cars, that'll be more influential. We weren't watching it, but Alessandrini seems to have made a mistake or something on that lap. He dropped back significantly and is now much closer to Lapras once again. So I do wonder, either the resources on the 61 are not as strong as they need to be, and by resources I mean tires, or Alessandrini maybe just made a one-off mistake on that lap.
Yeah, it could be either or really, but I do know looking at the last lap times, Lapras was the fastest of our top three. He's been slowly kind of keeping himself in behind. I don't think he's been able to close in a whole lot more, considering these guys haven't been going at each other's throats. The top two, I mean, Halcyon and Alessandrini, so he's been kind of just waddling in behind. Definitely has caught some draft to kind of keep him in the midst of this fight. Hasn't been able to really take an opportunity to make a move. I see Alessandrini get pretty close to Halcyon. And do you think at any point we're going to see Alessandrini start to get desperate here with 20 minutes to go?
Well, I think it started about 35 minutes ago. That he was feeling desperate. So I think he's probably got a lot of data at this point. He knows what won't work. He knows what he needs to do differently if he tries or ends up in a position to try another move. He's pretty much tried it everywhere. He's tried it in turn 2. He's tried it in turn 7. He's tried it in 10. Tried it in 13 here. He's tried it in 17. So that's a significant number of the passing opportunities covered. And every single time Halcyon's responded to it. So I think, again, he's got a lot of data. He's got a lot of learning done in this race, but I think he was desperate a long time before now.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets any more desperate if that's the case. With less than 20 minutes left, and I would have honestly thought that DJ would have passed Ken about 30 minutes ago, but just when they were really close to each other, and it just seemed like the pace that Alessandrini was going to get past Halcyon at some point, but we're now down to 20 minutes left in this race, and it's looking more the opposite, that Alessandrini's not going to be able to get past Halcyon, but Alessandrini's still giving it his all here, looking to the outside into Sunset Bend. Trying to find a way past Halcyon. There you see another TCR car right up the road. Hopefully he'll get out of the way, or it could be a factor for these guys. Most of the TCR traffic has been respectful of getting out of the way when they can. I am waiting for the one time that isn't the case, and that could be pretty spicy for this lead.
Spicy, sure, that's for sure. And I just tried to do a rough count. I think it's going to be about 4 laps before these guys catch the battle for second in TCR, which is still glued together between Roman and Alessi. That's Will Robbins in the TCR car just in front, and he runs in the 5th spot in class. 4th spot in class, actually, as Murphy Nichols dropped off of this one. So he has a little bit of breathing room to get out of the way. He doesn't have to, so he's going to stick to his guns and let Halcyon close around the outside. Alessandrini goes with. Unfortunately, I don't think Lapras is going to get there by the time they get to the brakes.
Yeah, we'll see here as they go into the brakes. He is going to let Lapras on by. Doesn't want to interfere in this battle at all. So good on Will Robbins out here just running his race. But again, it's going to be a different story once they get to guys battling. They've been pretty lucky. They've caught the TCR field when they just been kind of by themselves. They're more obligated to, not obligated, I said more willing to let these guys just on by. But when you catch guys battling, it's going to be a bit of a fight. Speaking of which, might have a battle here. Big mistake from Halcyon, and Alessandrini trying to capitalize on the outside.
Going to be close. I don't think he can hold it. Oh, he does. Alessandrini has the inside. No, Halcyon is deep on the brakes once again. Misses the apex at turn 13, but gets it tucked in and holds the point. So that's a new learning point and a new data point for Alessandrini in the 61. That one didn't work either.
His data sheet at this point is just going to look like didn't work.
Yep. 17 bullet points with all of them crossed out. Nope, none of those worked, but he's still got 17 minutes to keep trying. And the battle for TCR, second place, is every bit as close. Alessi's back up on the bumper of Roman, only 1 straightaway ahead, so it might be less than 4 laps, might be closer to 3 by the time the GT4 cars catch this one, and that is what you said will get spicy.
Yeah, this is, I think, going to be a deciding factor when they catch these guys, because there you see there's a lap car. That's the 43 of Lewis Alessi in 11th place. And you're going to see just in frame, there you see the GT4 leaders coming out of Sunset now. So only the length of this front straightaway left with 17 minutes left. Yeah, they're definitely going to catch them, as you mentioned, probably now 3 laps away from doing so. And I'm curious to see maybe if Alessandrini, if he knows they're going to catch, maybe do you want to wait for that? Because obviously it's looking like Alessandrini, he's going to need Halcyon to make a mistake or have some outside influence here. I don't think he's going to quite get past on raw pace.
No, I think he needs maybe 2 car lengths when Halcyon catches them, because if he gives them too much, he runs the risk of getting trapped while Halcyon squeezes through. But he wants to be just close enough that if Halcyon has any amount of hiccup, he has a run, uses the momentum to get back by. So if he's in front of a bumper like this, probably not ideal, but if he's more than maybe 2 car lengths off the back bumper, he's also probably not in the best spot.
Here we go. Alessandrini very much established along the outside, maybe going to try to pinch Halcyon, but this is the problem. Port's going to get a little bit of acceleration here, but we expect that BMW to start right about now. Now it's going to stretch his leg. There you can see it's going to put that Porsche in the dust. They're still alongside, though. We'll see who's going to outbrake each other.
they're both going to be really brave this time through. Halcyon, look at how good that BMW is on the brakes. They're still side by side at the apex, super respectful, and Halcyon has made this outside hold before. It's not the ideal position to be in. Oh, he loses the overlap. Halcyon loses the position. Alessandrini now shoves it back up the inside. Has to, no, doesn't get it done this time. This is where he basically has to rally through turns 15 and 16 and try to get the position back down the straightaway. But Alessandrini, for the second time ever, has completely gotten the position, gotten the lead away. Lapras now within a second. Halcyon, look at how close he is.
Yeah, and this backstretch, I'm curious to see what's going to happen on this backstretch here. Alessandrini gained quite a bit there through that corner, and now here they go onto the back straightaway. Actually, Alessandrini looks like he might start to pull away here, but now BMW is going to get some draft and also have 2 straightaways to work with here. Now we'll see, can Alessandrini hold this for a significant amount of time? We've only been able to see him hold the lead for about half a lap ahead of Halcyon before this.
Yeah, this is definitely not looking good for Ken. Look at how deep he is on the brakes, tries the nose, but this is so many options for corners. Almost touches the inside wall, barely keeps the mirror on it, but Alessandrini will lead the first lap ever in this race since starting on pole on the restart way back almost an hour ago. And with 15 minutes left, now Halcyon is on the back foot in a big way.
Yep, well, as you mentioned earlier, how the turntables for Ken Halcyon going to be put back in second place. And I thought, and I was just saying before, I thought he was potentially going to lead to the end of this race, but there you saw Alessandrini was able to capitalize. Now he's starting to break away half a second's the gap.
Yeah, I think the last hope that Halcyon has at this point, and Lapras for that matter, is that these TCR cars slow the roll that Alessandrini has. Look at the momentum that he was able to carry through the first half of this lap. That was when he was trapped. Every other lap until then, he's had that speed available to him, just had nowhere to go with it. This lap, he easily pulls out a full second.
Oh, no! Yep, made a mistake in the hairpin, lost a lot of mid-corner speed, got some of it back on exit, but that's not exactly what he needed.
No, 3/10 does Halcyon close in on Alessandrini. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to matter much because now he still has that clear room to breathe. They're only about a second behind the battle for second place in TCR. Roman still leads that one over Alessi. There they are, and then the GT4 cars in the background right there. That's just how close they are. So I think they're probably going to intersect each other somewhere around turn 1.
Yeah, and he just got to hope wherever he catches them that he catches them in the right place, because if not, if he gets held up, Halcyon has a shot of just getting established alongside, and potentially, again, depending on where the corner they catch them at is, getting back past for the lead. So this is far from over.
I think, yeah, catching them in turn 1 would be almost a nightmare for Alessandrini because that section through turns 2, 3, 4, 5 is really
he needs
narrow.
that.
Yeah, that's what Halcyon needs. But that Porsche getting slowed up through that single lane traffic through turns 3, 4, 5 would be really bad, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty close to that. Maybe just exiting turn 5.
Yeah, you can see Elias Roman and Alessi, they're actually going to go side by side through Sunset here.
Oh.
Seems Alessi going to try to get back on the power. He's going to try to, and it's going to be a drag race between these two. This is exactly not what DJ wants to see right ahead of him in front of his windshield.
No, but it's good that they're not going to catch him in turn 1 here, so they might catch him in time for a clear run down the straightaway between turns 6 and 7, but Roman's going to take the position back. Look at Alessi here on the outside, using the downforce of that TCR car all the way out to the exit, and they're going to go side by side still down into turn 2 for second.
Oh boy, this is going to be very interesting. Curious if I'm hoping they realize that the GT4 leaders are coming up right behind there. You see them right in the same shot. They're still going at it, Roman and Alessi. Neither driver trying to give. DJ's hoping one of them gives because he's really out of options.
Oh, this timing is not great for DJ Alessandrini, but the side-by-side battle for TCR is taking up the entire width of the track. Look at this. He's going to go to the inside. That is good right there for Alessandrini. It's a nightmare for Halcyon. They're going to go 3 wide down into the hairpin. Look at Roman on the outside.
And DJ somehow able to make that work, and now Halcyon's got to work his way through. He's got another straightaway work with. I don't think it's going to be too terribly bad of a situation. It's going to be very tight, however, for all 3 of these cars, 3 wide.
Wow. I mean, I don't think he lost much time from that, but that was stressful stuff for Halcyon. And now Lapras into the door of Halcyon.
Lapras dived it into the corner, and I think he spun out. No, he's still somehow able to keep it going, but I saw him try to make a dive, and the TCR cars got deep in the brakes. Didn't work. Oh, man.
That one might have sealed the deal for Alessandrini. Halcyon unfortunately gets doored on the way into turn 10. How much he has no room through turn 7 and through 8 and 9. And then Lapras probably had a run, maybe some target fixation, trying to get by with everything he's got, and just slams the door. I'm shocked that Halcyon didn't lose more time.
Try to take another look, see if we can get another angle. Here it is. Lapras trying to get 2 for 1 into the corner. Absolutely door the 23. I'm actually surprised that Halcyon didn't get more out of that or lose more out of that. I thought he was going to go flying off the track, cut the car going. Can't imagine the damage is doing him any favors, if anything else.
No, and I mean, yeah, he's lucky. You count his, I don't know, count his lucky stars, whatever you want to say. He's only 1.1 seconds back from DJ Allen, so he's still within striking distance, and they're completely safe from attack it behind at this point, with Lapras dropping 5 seconds out. Still has not made his way around Elias Roman, and now this one gets a lot calmer at the lead.
Yeah, with 10 minutes remaining, Alessandrini up in the lead. 1.2 seconds, the largest the gap has been for the lead this entire race, at least the overall lead, that is. As still got Lapras just now able to get through, I think, the TCR traffic out of turn 1. So looking less likely he's got a shot at getting back to second place unless Halcyon makes a mistake in their later goings, trying to push the catch Alessandrini. We'll take also a chance to see what's going on in TCR, at least for our leader, Peter. Lausen is actually got DJ now next on his list as far as lap cars. And Lausen's been having a really solid day. Took the lead after some chaotic lap 1 and led at the restart and hasn't looked back since. A really solid drive for the 56. Not too much to report about it otherwise, but Roman and David Alessi still in their battle for second place. Not neither one giving an inch, and they've also been able to keep it pretty clean considering how close they've been to each other. I think another close battle I'm trying to see looking is Idle X-Men and Andrew Chow. They're battling for 11th place.
Whoa. 4 off for Chow exiting turn 1. That was hairy. And Andrew Chow had a spin, I don't know, 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, that put him back this far to battle with Ito after Ito had that weird snap into the tires. So both of these cars have been through it today, but they're still battling one another for 10th. 11th and 12th. Danny Gross holds down 10th after Gross had been up in the top 5, so I don't really know what happened to the 24 to put him back this far. There's no significant damage visible on that car, but maybe went for a harmless spin and lost a bunch of track position. But that battle between
He's actually made a trip down pit road from what I've seen, so that definitely cost him a lot of time. It was actually 3 laps ago, so it's pretty recent.
I have to wonder if he had planned on a pit stop, and now that we basically have gone green from that caution, if he was still in a position where he needed one.
Yeah, you also see another driver that's come down to the pits is Thomas Layton in the 18 machine. He's still running in 5th. So another interesting little note there. Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind. Sorry, I realized that was a 32 laps. That was at the restart. Ignore that last point.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there's probably a number of drivers who were locking themselves into a strategy of pitting at some point through this race and probably didn't start on full fuel. Maybe anybody who's been pitting over the last couple of laps has run their tank out. If they didn't start on a full tank, then they would have been very low on fuel. And unfortunately, it sounds like Danny Gross was probably in that situation.
Here's another close battle. Richard Spicer working on Kevin Zhu just up the road in the Repsol 243 BMW running in 8th place. Then we got Spicer right in behind trying to chase him down. Got a pretty solid run out of Sunset as well.
And he almost goes to the inside, does Spicer. Turns in late after Zhu protected on the way into the corner, put the car exactly where it needed to be, and gets himself a couple of car lengths of grace there between these two BMWs, and they battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th, just inside the top 10 for both of these cars, who have both had their share of problems today as well. Pretty much everybody but Alessandrini has had issues at this point now that Halcyon got doored by Lapras. He's pretty much the only one that's not had a major incident in this race at some point. Him and Lausen, Peter Lausen, has also been the epitome of picture perfect today.
Yeah, well, don't want to speak too soon. There are still 6 minutes left. There could be a driver waiting to door him. Hopefully not DJ Alessandrini, because he's coming quickly up on the 56. You'll see the 28 car that is Brian McCrio. We saw in the pits earlier on. He's running 31st overall, 10th in class, as Alessandrini works his way on by him.
Race leaders are going to come across the line pretty close together this time. Not able to get up the inside of Lausen's. The orange TCR car in front That is the race leader in TCR, and then the orange and white, black, and teal Cayman of Alessandrini leads the way in GT4. Lausen opens the door, and they're going to go side by side across the line. Look at that. Look at that.
Someone whip your camera or rewind and take a shot of that, and both the race leaders coming by with 6 minutes left on the clock, coming very much to the end of this race. Both of them established themselves as a really solid driver, and both of them earning this victory, I would think, running next to flawless races. Knock on wood. Just wanna for DJ.
Still using the curves quite a bit. Pretty confident in the car at this point now that he's got free air to use. He's put 3 seconds on Ken House-Seal at this point, so it continues to grow now with 3.1. Continue at that point. House-Seal's not quite going to clear the lap traffic coming down into turn 7 this time. Clears the TCR car, but he's got the GT4 car there. That's, I think, the 92 of Don Manning.
Yeah, I think for House-Seal now, I think he's kind of admitted defeat at this point. I think now it's a matter of bringing it home. But if anything, can't say he didn't fight for it. I would have thought that House-Seal probably would have lost the lead about an hour ago, but he kept up a really, really solid fight up until the last, within the last 20 minutes is where it went wrong for him. But up until that point, and DJ for the lead of this race, and either one of them deserve the victory.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think as impressive as it is for Alessandrini to have kept the pressure on, very little mistakes, and now leads the race, I would almost say the driver of the race is Ken House-Seal, regardless of the finishing order, because of how epic he defended that position for an hour straight. And I can't emphasize how hard that is. I mean, in a real car that would be so hard, but in the simulator, the mental capacity, the mental focus and consistency that it takes to do that is just like next level as far as I'm concerned. So while it fell away from him about 15 minutes short, super impressive with the 23 car. Alessandrini is off in the distance at this point. There now, you see the gap between the two of them, 3.5 seconds.
Another close battle going on. Here we go. Andrew Chow and Ito Waxman, we were looking at them earlier. They're side by side into, I believe it's turn 10.
That is turn 10. Wow, looks like the BMW of Ito Waxman really good on the brakes down there. Has plenty of pad left after an hour and a half there in the 8 car. Chow was not able to do anything with him in the 29. What are we, Hooters versus Popeyes?
Battle of the restaurants here.
But Chow rallies. Oh, battle a little. Oh, man. Okay.
Is that the right one?
I don't know what that
is. That's a perfect shot from the mirror. There we go. For Andrew Chow trying to chase down Ito Waxman in the closing stages of this race. Battle for 11th place. See Waxman make a big mistake into the penultimate corner. That's going to allow Chow to get a great run here.
And the BMW is barely going to be able to hold it. No, they're going to go side by side up the road a little bit further. It's Zoo and Spicer side by side as well. But this battle for just at the top 10. Waxman's get the inside, Chow with the outside, trying for the over-under now. Waxman had a little bit of a slide in turn 16, runs wide on the exit. Chow's going to get the inside now, which will turn to the outside for turn 1. So it's going to be a number of corners side by side for these two as they're coming up on, is that Danny Gross?
Yeah, I think it is. Indeed, it is. It's Daniel Gross for the last car in the top 10. Just running in 10th place. He's actually running very slow lap times. He ran a 2:24. I'm not sure if that car is damaged or if he just made a mistake last lap through, but he's now got a mirror full of Waxman and Chow.
I don't know. That's a significant amount of damage on the 24 that was not there before. Looks like he basically gets out of the way. So now this is top 10 for Ito and Andrew. The BMW holds the 10, and that's an achievement in itself after a really good start. I think Waxman was challenging for the lead at one point. Kind of got away from him, but they're going to be closing in on the white flag, I think, next time through.
Yeah, it should be getting close to it here as you see them both deep on the brakes into the hairpin. Chow going to try to do an over-under. Can't quite get it done. BMW horsepower helping out the 6 machine of Ito Waxman. So Chow actually gets a pretty solid run here. He's trying to set up a move, but can't quite get it done. Also check up on, we're talking about Kevin Zhu and Richard Spicer. They're getting close yet again, but Zhu going to maintain ahead in 8th place. Looking at DJ Alessandrini, he's come across 2 laps to go for the race. And then
should be the white flag if it was a minute and some left.
Oh yeah, sorry, it should be the white. Yeah, you're right about that. The estimated, I was showing the estimated laps, so we still got 2 more laps left to go. That's why I was getting a little bit confused. But for DJ, really solid running for this event. Can't argue that he didn't win this race. The car's still looking pristine. You could argue also Ken Seals was until he got a door full of Christopher Lapras about 10 minutes ago. And for Allison Drini, to no one's surprise as well, has set the fastest lap of the day, 2:11.5. Still never saw those lap times down in the 2:09s you were mentioning earlier, even the 2:10s like they were in qualifying. I can imagine with the race fuel and the tires wearing out, that's had a bit of a factor, but pretty close on the times as well. Even looking at Ken Seal, the only other driver, one of the only other drivers to get into the 2:11s, the 2:11.7. And you can see he's also backed up the pace, running 2:16, so he's trying to bring this car back home in one piece for a solid second place.
Yeah, and just behind him, the leader in TCR, Peter Lausen, has also taken the white flag, so he will be on his final trip around Sebring, 3 and some miles. But both leaders now working their last laps. So they've isolated themselves pretty much completely at this point. Look at the gap between Allison Drini and House Seal. How much more pace that Cayman has in it now that he's got clear air. He's put 8.4 seconds on House Seal in the last 10 minutes or so of this race.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of suspicious of how slow Seal is. Maybe he's trying to save fuel. Whoa, was he came in off into the dirt in the penultimate corner, but for Allison Drini, blasting down the back straightaway. It's been an absolute dogfight up in the front for majority of the race. Only it's really the last 15 minutes that we had a lull in the action, but Allison Drini, I'm sure he's going to be happy he got through this. It took him quite a while to get to the lead, but as he rounds out of Sunset Bend for the final time, he will be the winner of the 90 minutes of Sebring. Great job done by the 61. He will take the win. And House Seal a little bit further back, going to be a little bit disappointed what could have been, but it was still a valiant effort for the 23 BMW.
Yeah, fantastic show put on by both of them. And now Peter Lausen in TCR, the 56, takes his first win of the WDCR SCCA Winter 2020 season from third on the grid, and a very dominant, really dominant from the start. Took the lead early, and a really solid run from David Alessi to take second place over one of the dominant drivers this season. There's Elias Roman in third, but Alessi, an amazing charge in the orange number 34, top 3 in TCR.
Oh, wow. And Elias Roman turning the car into confetti there as he drove straight into the tire barriers, thinking to be happy this one is over, as we had most of our drivers still finishing on through. But man, what a race. It definitely was the DJ and Ken show up in the front of the field, but they gave us some absolutely entertaining racing. Some of the best racing I've seen on iRacing. I know the Fuel Mission 22 Premier Series, they had a great race last night in the oval side of things, but these guys too, for over an hour going back and forth with each other. What a treat it was.
Yeah, I feel spoiled to be able to watch that. That was great. And House Seal putting up an amazing defense. Lapras kept himself in the hunt the entire time, but ultimately sealed both House Seal and himself's fate with the contact late in that race. Alex LaRose, a really good recovery for fourth, and Thomas Layton, another good recovery for fifth. Looking on the championship side, that is Allison Drini's fourth of 5 race wins. And the only driver in the top 5 of points that was missing tonight was Andrew Pilata. So Ken House Seal, Chris Lapras, and Alex LaRose will jump up. Those are the top 4 in the race, and those are the top 4 in the championship halfway through this season.
And we get to scroll on just another page, and you can see the rest of the GT4 field. Also, again, I can imagine for Ito Axman, kind of one of the drivers, kind of wondering what could have been. Same thing with Daniel Gross too. He really fell off in the later part of this race. Could have been. It was a top 5 driver. 1 point fell all the way back to 13. So he's also going to be a bit disappointed in the results. And then you can see there Peter Lausen taking home the TCR win. No contest really in that category, at least for the win. And you see the rest of the TCR field. David Alessi, Elias Roman duking out the entire race. It's essentially what we had in GT4, but in second place for TCR between both those guys. Very close finish. Will Robbins in fourth. Darren Heath also snuck up the order into fifth in the later going. Murphy Nichols dropping back to sixth. And with that, we'll take a little bit of a breather, because I think we definitely earned it after what is in full over the last hour and a half. We'll take a little bit of a break here, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with your top 2 in each class for interviews. And welcome back to Sebring. We got David Alessi, your second place finisher in TCR. And David, we saw you were in a fantastic battle with Elias. Unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of screen time on your guys' battle because we were too busy watching the GT4 battle unfold up in front. But the few times you did catch you guys, every single time we went to you guys, you're constantly back and forth swapping position between who was in second and who was in third. So kind of walk us through how your entire race went.
Man, it was a lot of fun. At the restart, I was chasing down Peter, and he was just kind of steadily ticking away tenths and then pulling away. I just didn't have the pace, and then me and Elias got together and just kind of ran nose to tail, swapping back and forth for a little while, trying to catch back up. And after a while, Peter was still pulling away, so we kind of started battling a little bit more. And then, towards the end, we just kind of started going at it. We knew we weren't going to catch him, and it was a lot of fun with Elias. He's really clean, really fun to race with. We went side by side for I don't know turns 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to the hairpin, 3 wide with DJ, and then man, last lap, me and Elias. I'd noticed. I think his tires were going through that turn. I was kind of steadily getting quicker than him when previously he was quicker than me, and we had kind of bumped a couple times for that turn, and it was everything was all fine. It was just a little nudge here and there, and that last lap, I don't know, it really wasn't anything different than any previous laps, and I guess for whatever reason it just happened to catch Elias the perfectly wrong way, and he got put off. I feel really bad about it, Elias. That was your second place, to be honest with you. I hate to take it like that because that was a whole lot of fun we had, and it is what it is. But that was a blast.
Yeah, indeed, definitely seemed like it. Well, David, thanks for talking to us again. David Alessi, your second place finisher in TCR. Great finish, David, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, next on the board, let's talk to Peter Lausen, who ended up winning the race in TCR. Peter, it's a great drive from you. I don't think you really got a whole lot of screen time on the broadcast, other than the fact that you were just pointing out how dominating you were for this race. I also just want to walk us through the start of the race, because we saw that you started back in third, and you were able to take the lead. Walk us through how that went for you, and then also how pivotal do you think that was for how your race turned out?
Yeah, it's definitely the start was pretty wild. The contact, I think Elias and Chrissy had some contact right on the gate, and then it's kind of in a tight spot, not a lot of room to go, so I just had to take my best guess around the outside there, and luckily it worked out. Yeah, and then obviously that was I think Elias and John both had better pace than me on a one lap basis, so definitely throwing some adversity their way, I think helped me out a bit, and I just tried to keep my head down and focus and run clean laps best I could.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because again, we didn't quite get enough screen time, I think, for you. Every time you saw you were flying out there like there was no problem. Were there any problems that you encountered this race?
The caution there at the beginning kind of it was a bit hairy there for the first few laps, because we were right up on the back of the GT4s. And then there was some GT4s that had problems on the first lap that were coming up through the field. So it was pretty tricky there trying to manage traffic in front and behind. And then at the end, just tires near the end the car started to get a bit squirrely. So just try to back off at the end once I had a bit of a margin there.
All right, well, that was Peter Lausen, your winner in TCR, and also first win of the season, so congratulations to Peter on that. Any other, before you go, actually, looking at the rest of the schedule, any other places you think you can maybe stretch your legs?
Ask him again.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying, Peter, is your first win of the season. Looking at the rest of the schedule and the other tracks that we have left on the calendar for this season, any other tracks you think maybe you can get your second win?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't even remember what the rest of the tracks are for the season. So I think Suzuka's a fun one. I don't remember that one's coming up, but yeah, I guess if this is anything to go off of, any place where some people in front of me can have some contact, I think is probably my best bet. So Looking for some tight twisted tracks, I guess.
Yeah, I see Alton Park, Suzuka, Monza, and Summit Point. So I guess take your pick out of the 4. I guess which is your favorite?
Suzuka will be fun. Definitely a lot of opportunities there for a mistake, I think.
All right. Well, looking forward to seeing how you perform at Suzuka. But for now, Peter, congrats on your win.
Thanks.
All right, moving back to, I think, the drivers that most people have been wanting to hear from. I'll talk to Ken O'Seal first, or I'll actually talk to Christopher Lapras first. I have him in here. Chris, you were kind of out of the midst of that GT4 battle. I saw you come up close in later goings, but unfortunately, you didn't quite go your way.
Yeah, I mean, avoided some accidents in the beginning and then kind of got stuck running alone and watching Ken and DJ put on a show for 90% of the race, and then I almost ruined it for everybody by just, I don't know, getting complacent.
Yeah, and looking back, obviously, besides what happened to you, getting into the door of Ken O'Seal, do you think, looking back at your race as a whole, do you think there's anything you could have done differently to maybe put yourself in a better position fighting with those guys?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't try to go 3 wide with 2 TCR cars and miss my braking point.
Chris, for you, it was your best finish in the series, and you had multiple 4th place finishes beforehand. So, you're still kind of looking for that first win. Obviously, this is your first finish with a step on the podium. So, is there any, looking at the other 4 tracks, we got Alton Park, Suzuka, Monza, and Summit Point. Any of those tickle your fancy? I guess is the best way to put that.
If I had to pick a favorite out of those 4, it's definitely Suzuka.
Oh, well, that's exactly what Peter Lawson said before you jumped in. So a lot of people liking Suzuka at the moment. So, Chris, it was a really solid effort for you. Almost looking like you had a shot at the win. Wasn't enough, but still a solid third. Looking forward to seeing how you perform at the rest of the season, especially at Suzuka.
Thank you, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, no problem. And with that, we'll go now to Ken O'Seal in the 23 in 2nd place. Ken, first of all, I wanted to point out that you and DJ think shared 90% of the screen time for this race. Your guys' battle was epic and one of the best battles ever seen on iRacing, spanning over the course of an hour. How were you able to put up with DJ constantly in your rear view mirror for an hour, lap after lap?
Man, that was really intense. The start of the race, I don't know what happened in turn 1. I didn't go back and look at the replay of that yet. But then the rest of the race, it was like, I knew I needed to conserve the tires a little early because the BMW seems to go through them harder. And then we just sort of ended up around the same pace for a long time. And eventually my car started falling off and it just started making little mistakes here and there. And eventually it let DJ getting by. But, geez, I was sweating bullets for a long time.
Yeah, well, definitely the way the guys were racing, it was looking like you guys were sweating quite a few bullets. And looking at your season's been a bit rough. Incidents in 2 of the 4 races, so I guess not really any plans because you can't plan for not getting yourself in incidents, especially what happened between you and Lapras. But any way you think you could try to turn your luck around for the rest of the season?
Man, I don't know. Just keep having fun. I mean, that was tons of fun. Even the incident with Lapras, like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, okay, I was behind DJ. I think I could probably have run around the same pace, especially in the draft. Maybe do something, but it would have been so hard to get back by DJ. It's kind of here nor there.
All right, with that, let's wrap up with Ken O'Seal finishing 2nd after argue that you dominated. You led the most laps in this race. I'm sure there's definitely one thing you could take home from it.
Yeah, thanks.
And moving on to DJ Alessandrini, your overall race winner. DJ, I talked to you a lot in Victory Lane, but this time I would say compared to most other times we had to talk to you, you definitely earned it tonight.
Man, that was insane. I think Ken's a robot because I cannot believe the amount of pressure I was putting under him, and then he never made mistakes where I could turn it into a pass. Like even in the hairpin, if he missed the apex a little bit, it was very tough to go side by side there, and for me to swoop up underneath him and put power down, the traction control would kick in, or I would spin up tires. Every single time I would try to dive up underneath him until the one time where I finally got him, I just was really ginger on the throttle, knowing that the car's all pinched up. But yeah, it was man, that was a ton of fun. And kudos to Ken. Like I said, that guy's a robot or something, dude, because I could not believe how much I was harassing him, and then he just wouldn't miss marks. It was really impressive. I think if the race was an hour long, I would have lost. And thank goodness it was 90 minutes because the Cayman was definitely a more enjoyable car to drive after that long duration of driving.
Yeah, and DJ, also getting word to you, you've yet to be off the podium this season so far. Again, not too terribly surprised with that because you're a really awesome driver. You've been doing a really solid job. Also keeping the car squeaky clean. I think you had a little bit of a fender bender with Ken O'Seal, but I don't even think it dented anything on the actual car itself. But
I guess I'll use this opportunity to apologize to Ito Oxman because I definitely murdered him at some point during the race.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah. So it's, when you murder somebody that you don't really know, like, you still feel bad, but you don't know the guy, so it's like, man, that sucks. I ruined that one guy's race. But when you ruin like your best friend's race, like that really sucks. So thank you to Ito for being understanding that I'm not perfect and I am capable of murder. And I'm really sorry, Ito. You're having a really good race, and I kind of messed it up for you, so I apologize for that.
There's a quote right there. I'm not perfect. I'm capable of murder.
I hope that's not taken out of context.
I think it definitely will be. But DJ,
I'm never running for office.
We got some interesting and very fairly challenging circuits up ahead after Sebring, heading to Alton Park, Suzuka, Monza not so much, but also Summit Point, another tight circuit. As I mentioned, you're yet to finish off the podium. So any of those races you think might be particularly difficult for you?
If Sebring's hard to pass out, Alton Park's going to be near impossible to pass out. That's a really tight circuit, but also a very fun circuit, and it's easy to make mistakes there, so it might make some interesting racing dynamics where you're pressuring a guy to make mistakes. Let's just say I hope Ken O'Seal's not in front of me, because he kind of displayed tonight that he doesn't make a whole lot of them, and in the GT4 machinery, it's tough to pass somebody who doesn't make mistakes.
All right, well, DJ, great win for you. Great battle with yourself and Ken O'Seal, with you ending up at top. And I can't imagine it's going to be the last time we'll be talking to you in victory lane. But go ahead and celebrate, because you definitely earned this one.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Finian. Nice to have you back. And thank you, Tom.
Yeah, definitely good to be back. And with that, it's going to wrap up interviews here from Sebring after talking to our race winners and hearing their very eventful races. Tom, any final words from you?
Well, I think I'm just looking at this from the championship in the DC region's winter 2020 season. We're kind of at a turning point where we're halfway through. We just did the first of our 2 long races here at Sebring, and we've sort of been hovering in and out of familiarity for these drivers. We did Coda, we did Laguna Seca, but we also stretched out to Donington Park in the UK. We stretched out to Imola in Italy. Now we're completely abandoning that for a couple of weeks, and we're going to Old Park in the UK, Suzuka in Japan, Monza in Italy. These are tracks that are probably not necessarily in everybody's wheelhouse quite so much. So I'm really curious to see the shape that this season takes in the second half of the year, before we finally return home for the DC region at the 1.2 hours of Summit Point, our final endurance race of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised to see things change up a little bit, but looking at tonight, the drivers that have been strong and consistent were the ones that were on the top. So more of the same, but also I think things could continue to stay interesting going into the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, definitely also looking forward to trying to follow these guys for the next race. Obviously, it's going to be Kyle back in the booth, but I'm glad I can take this race and brag about how the great race that he missed calling out on, because it was definitely a great race to come back for to commentate on. But for now, my name is Fini Kuna, here with Tom O'Gorman for the 90 Minutes of Sebring here with the Washington Region SCCA, and we're going to be calling it a night. Thank you for watching.